I'm Chris McDonough, a retired homicide detective. I've interviewed thousands of people, from serial killers to ministers. Welcome to the interview room. Aloha, everybody. Hey, guys, how you doing?
Woo-hoo. Doing great.
Hey, Chris.
How's everybody doing tonight? Boy, another great Sunday evening together. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We are really excited to have you all. I want to, first of all, kick off tonight's program by thanking all of our mods. I'll tell you, without you guys, we couldn't do this. And we're very grateful that you're here on your Sunday night, taking the time to be with us. We are very, very appreciative of each of you. And I just can't say thank you enough. So thank you. Hey, we've got everybody in the house here tonight. We've got folks from New Zealand, from, let me read over here, Michelle from Long Island, Vacaville, California, the Joy Catcher. Thank you, Joy. Great to have you here. Miss Sophie, Maui girl, our Four Sons mom, Miss Leah, and the folks are just coming in. A couple of just house cleaning notes. We are that close to 10,000. I think we're less than 100 subscribers away. Oh. So if you can hit that subscribe button tonight, boy, would that be exciting, guys. I mean, we're just on this way in the right trajectory, but we can't do it without you. We've got some amazing things lined up coming in the future here with content, and but it's because of you that we're able to do this. I believe it or not, I'm in the Dallas area right now. I'm waiting for my Airstream with my family, and as promised, once that comes in here, shout out to Airstream of DFW. We're that close to getting it from the factory. And Coop, once that happens, I'm going to park it in your driveway and lower your property value.
I think you'd probably raise my property value.
We sure love you guys. And so who do we have here tonight? We've got a really, really very sensitive case. I think we're going to talk about Maya Millete tonight. And we're going to do it in such a way that we're actually going to talk, we're going to analyze her husband's statement, Larry. And so with that, I want to do some introductions of our panel here tonight. Most of you know them, but if you're new to our channel, we've got folks I see coming in from Virginia and other places of the world, Florida, New Hampshire, Australia, Austria, Germany. They're from all around the world. So thank you, folks, for being here. We're grateful. But I want to introduce our panel and let them tell a little bit about themselves. And tonight I'm going to start down here with my brother on the bottom, Mr. Dean L. Jackson, an amazing human being, former coroner guy. And so, Dean, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself.
Well, thanks, Chris. It's really a privilege to be here with you guys tonight. And I kind of feel like a kid who gets to hang out with all of his superheroes because I've had the privilege for the last 7 years to work at the Cold Case Foundation as a deputy executive director and learn every day something new and work side by side with Greg. And it's just been an amazing experience. And Steve, I got to take his training, and he's amazing just to see what he's able to pull out of these sentences. So I'm as excited to hear what they talk about as anything tonight. But we've been working at the Cold Case Foundation now for 7 years, and it's really been a dream of Greg's to provide this resource to both law enforcement and victims' families. And we work cold cases, homicides, missing persons, unidentified bodies, and then sexual assault cases with serial characteristics. So every day is always a new adventure, and it's just a privilege to serve our clients, and that is the victims, because that's what we believe. So thanks for letting us come out and be a part tonight.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. And just a couple more shout outs. We got Sophie H in LA, Tennessee, Utah, Texas is in the house. Awesome. Thank you guys for being here. We're very, very grateful. Next in the lineup here is our forensic statement analyst. This guy is the real deal. He trains law enforcement from all over the world, guys. And I saw, Steve, you were just recently reaching out to some of the HIDA guys, and I saw some pictures of you doing some training and stuff. But so tell everybody a little bit about Steve Johnson, buddy.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I've been investigating criminal cases for almost 31 years now, and I had 28 years at a PD. I was a detective for most of that time, and I was assigned to various cases and various units. But I spent most of my time in violent crimes and investigating. I was on a call-out team. We investigated all the homicides and shootings and anything violent and anything big in nature, and complex cases was kind of my specialty as well. But I would say my biggest specialty was interview and interrogation. And I taught at the police academy. I created courses for the academy for new detectives and taught at detective schools. And when I started putting this together, what I'm doing now, it was kind of a combination of things. I was a voice stress analyst, as I know you were too, Chris. And I had certification as a statement analyst and a forensic handwriting analyst. And what I learned was you combine things from each of those skill sets and you put it together, and it just makes sense. Of the profile that you can gain from a verbal or written statement is just incredible. And so I started putting that together, using in my interviews. And I tell you what, it changed everything. The traditional way that we're taught, even I taught at the academy and in these schools, the traditional interviewing methods, it makes them obsolete. And what we're doing now is teaching investigators how to recognize information in the language that people use, whether you're talking to them on the street, you're talking to your neighbor, a business associate, someone you're hiring. But for criminal investigators, this person that you're interviewing, maybe in the interview room, it's just a paradigm shift, and it's so much, it's better. And we're getting more confessions, getting more information. And so that was the change in my career. And I spent probably the last 8 or so years of my career perfecting that, using it, consulting on other investigators' cases. In fact, I consulted on more cases than I worked on my own caseload. And that started growing, and pretty soon it was outside my agency and then other states, and it just continued to grow. And so I couldn't leave that alone. It's just too effective. And so now what I do is I have the opportunity to teach it to criminal investigators. I consult on cases for agencies and corporate. And I tell you what, it's just fantastic. Chris, before you and I met, I saw this blip about the interview room, and interviewing was my specialty. And that's what I love to do. I think that if you can't interview, then that is so key to solving so many cases, that interview. And so that's what attracted me to this, actually to your show. And I heard you one time tell a story about, a guy that contacted you, 25 years later, that you had arrested at some point in time. And I
the
just
Main
wanted
Street
to
Crip.
say, these interview tactics, the interview techniques are so powerful. If you interview correctly, you will leave that interview room and there will be a mutual respect between you and your opponent. And this week, just 2 days ago, I was reminded of this. I actually received a message from a guy that I put in prison several years ago. And he sent me this message and he said, and just a little backstory, he got out of prison and he called me and I thought he wanted to kill me. This guy was at the top of his food chain. We were about the same age. He was in the life and top of the food chain. He'd get anything done he wanted to, basically. And I won't mention his name. I won't go into the details, but I was a little apprehensive about this guy. As it turned out, he called me and he said, "Hey, I'm getting out of prison." He says, "If I get out and I keep up with this life, you'll be the guy that will find me, that will catch me." And he says, "I want to change my life." And I said, so long story short, after a while, I gave him some avenues, to change his life. And the rest was up to him, and he did it. And just 2 days ago, hats off to him. It was a struggle for him, but he did it. He told the line. He sent me a picture of his new baby. He said, "I recently was married. We have a baby." He says, "If it wasn't for the resources you gave me," he goes, "I wouldn't have this life. I'd be doing life." And I tell you what, out of any accolade I could have in my career, any award or whatever, it all pales in comparison to something like that you can make a difference. That's what I want to get across to the investigators that we teach. So our classes will knock your socks off. For all you investigators that are listening, reach out. I'll come to your states, your agencies, or you can come here and attend one of the classes. Check out my website. I've got classes posted. There's classes that aren't posted on the website. And by the way, we're trying to reach more people. We just started an Instagram page and a Facebook page. Truth to Lies Analysis is the Instagram. Truth to Lies is the Facebook, and we'll make
sure we'll get those down in the description down below for sure. We'll make sure everybody gets to see that.
Those classes will knock your socks off, and it's just such great information, and that's what I love to do. And my association now with you guys and the Cold Case Foundation is an honor. I'm looking forward to some really great things coming up. Cases like this, the Maya Millete case, it's why we do what we do, and it's in our blood, and we have this need to solve these cases, to bring justice, and whether that's exonerating the innocent or putting those that are de facto guilty in prison, it's what we're going to do, and it's just an honor to work with a crew like this.
That's awesome. Well, we're honored to have you here, Steve, and I know that our family here, our community, they absolutely love your analysis, and that's the other thing I think is amazing about you. You didn't really talk about yourself. You talked about a life that you impacted, and you made a difference, and that's fantastic. That's exactly the reason why I love having you here. And not only are you a friend, but more importantly, you're top-notch professional at what you do. And I'm grateful to have you here, and I know our community is as well. Thank you for sharing that. Just a fantastic story.
Thank you, Chris. Honor.
Batting cleanup tonight, Mr. Greg Cooper from, if you do not know Greg, well, you're going to know him here in a second. Greg not only has written a lot of books, and trained a lot of investigators and profilers and many FBI agents in the FBI Academy who took many of his classes. But he also was the he ran the behavior science unit for some time, and he was one of John Pro's. You and John worked together for many years, right, Coop? I mean,
oh yeah. John was he was my mentor really, and I had the opportunity to work with John for about 5 years, and then when John retired, I was his relief supervisor, so I had the opportunity of taking the supervisory position as an acting unit chief for almost about a year before I left the unit, and then eventually returned to local law enforcement as a police chief. But during my time there, it was really a fascinating time because I had the opportunity to work in a couple different positions. One as a profiler, of course, and of the Northwest Territory of the United States. I don't know how, but I didn't ask any questions. They also included Hawaii in that. I didn't challenge it. I just accepted it with a I had the opportunity to actually go to Hawaii as a result of that and spend about 10 days over there working some cases. And then had the unique opportunity of testifying against a serial killer, linking two cases, separate cases, obviously, from two different counties. That my function was to provide testimony that the behavior that I saw between these two cases, I went through what I refer to as the 10 filters of profiling, from victimology all the way down to suspect information. And had the opportunity to testify against this individual twice, linking these cases to him based upon behavior. And as a result, he received convictions of both. And in fact, he received 2 separate death penalties, which is kind of unique. Yet to see that carried out the first time. But I'm waiting for an announcement to that effect. It has been challenged, of course. He's challenged it for the last, over 20 years now, particularly my testimony. And has gone all the way through the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals unsuccessfully, which I'm pleased to see. And I know that he's trying to get to the Supreme Court. I don't think that there'll be success there, but and hopefully that they won't consider it. Nevertheless, that was probably one of those highlights among many that we have in our career, where you have an opportunity to see the application of an area of specialization that you're able to develop under the tutelage of great men and women who have taught me and instructed me and mentored me throughout my life, particularly in this area, and John Douglas being that primary person. So hopefully we can talk him into coming on board and joining us one of these nights.
There you go. That'd be fantastic. You guys heard it. Coop's on it. If we get John up here, you can't get any higher than Greg Cooper, John Douglas, and wrestler, and I know Mary Ellen O'Toole for many years, right, Coop? I mean, Mary Ellen's doing a lot of work out there still, and even Mark Stefanik. I see Mark, popping up, doing great things, and so just. But you guys were the pioneers. I mean, you guys were the cutting edge, and if you haven't had a chance, guys, before we jump right in, and we're going to get right into Maya, if you haven't had a chance, check out the video Coop did this week on Susan Smith. It is a fascinating psychological breakdown on what her thought process was. And I got to be honest with you, Coop, when I called you and I said, hey, would you, set this thing up from the profiler side, man, as I was driving that, and I got into that thing, I was like, holy cow, this gal, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot going on here. Okay, so we're not here for Susan. We're here for Maya. She's still missing. And I've made a commitment to her family, as you guys have as well, in terms of the fact that you're even here tonight, to try to help or assist in any way possible. And so one of the things Steve, we'll kind of do the same, stop start, and we're going to follow your lead through this with you and Coop and Dean and I. Of course, we always bat third and fourth, but you guys are hitting the home runs here because this is what you guys know better than anybody. But so just as a refresher, we're not saying anybody's guilty, and we're not saying anybody's innocent. That's up to a court of law. We're just looking at facts, factual in nature. We don't speculate on this channel. You're not going to hear that. We don't go there, but we try to measure, the expertise that each of us has, bring it to this environment, and then share it with you, our audience and the community out there. The goal here is Maya is missing, and she's been missing, for quite some time now. And we have a standing invitation to Larry. Still stands. Come on over. Let's talk, buddy. We want to help you find your wife. And I know you probably want to help, find your wife. And so I definitely know your sister-in-law and brother-in-law are diligently, and the rest of your family. So this is a tragedy on both sides, and sometimes tragedies have a lot of different moving components to it. So Dylan, let's the back room here again. To our mods, thank you so much. We absolutely love you guys. We're grateful. Keep it classy out there. So let's go ahead and to Dylan in the back room. We want to thank you tonight too, pal. We're grateful that you're here. So let's go ahead and set up the couple of slides, and I'm just going to kind of run through just a little victimology, guys, of what I've put together here. And so, Dylan, let's hit the next slide here. So Maya she lives in Chula Vista, California. Now Chula Vista is here, which is down by the border in San Diego County, and she goes by May. She's 5'2", around 105 pounds, and she has tattoos of musical notes of hummingbirds on one of her shoulders. She is a mother of 3. She went missing just before her daughter's 11th birthday, and that was Thursday, January 7th. That's when she was last seen by her husband, Larry, at their home in Chula Vista, California. She's originally from the Philippines. She's lived previously in Paso Los Gatos, or she lives in Paso Los Gatos in Chula Vista. She's previously lived in Buena Park, Orange County area of California. She's also lived in Honolulu, Hawaii, and that is where she and her husband met one another, or ultimately were married in Honolulu area, Hawaii, Oahu for sure. She has 5 siblings. The oldest is her oldest sister, Mary Chris, who you folks have met, and she and Larry were high school sweethearts. And they got married at 18 years of age. There are reports that they had been having marital problems for at least a year up until her disappearance. They had been pretty much living separate lives, yet connected together with the 3 children. And they were also living in, it sounds like, separate locations inside of the residence. She and her husband, Larry, apparently had some type of argument around New Year's about a Jeep that was purchased and that they were going to use on a family camping trip. And then her family last saw her around 5 p.m. January 7th. And her husband was the last, again, to see her before she's disappeared. They were supposed to travel to Big Bear in San Bernardino County on January 9th. For her daughter's 11th birthday. The previous 10 years of that young lady's birthdays, Maya has never, ever been there, ever. So this is just completely crazy that this is going on even this long. She has 3 children, like I mentioned. They are 11, 9, and 4 years of age. There is a GoFundMe page set up. to help support her family. And Larry, her husband, apparently has been staying home to attend to the children, while Maya has been working on Naval Base San Diego at 32nd Street, and he also works at Balboa Naval Hospital. He's a former corpsman in the Navy. He spent like 4 years in the Navy. So that said, Dale, let's go to the next slide. There was a search warrant that was executed on the house. His family vehicle was taken and processed. There are other items that were missing out of the house that I have discovered and have information on. And if we have to, we'll get into that. But currently, right now, we want to kind of keep that close to the chest. There's also some additional video management system evidence from local Ring doorbells and that type of stuff that's come up to the surface, guys. Let's go to the next one. And so this is them. This young lady is described as a free spirit, yet very controlled, very organized. She would have never missed work. She would have never missed an opportunity to be with her family. It sounded like they had, they fell in love as high school sweethearts. And, this is a situation now that these three children are looking for their mom. It seems like there's some dynamics between both of the families since Maya's disappearance that have taken place. The community of Chula Vista, of San Diego, and quite frankly, the world has sent their love, their time, their support. Guys, the whole community down there, her Jeep Club, her friends, her girlfriends, they've just been amazing in searching for her. There are Facebook pages set up for her. So if anybody has information at the conclusion of this breakdown of information that we have here tonight, please call Chula Vista Police Department immediately. Do the right thing. If you know something, let them get on it. Let them get on it. So Larry, her husband, took a statement or made a statement to the news. And so tonight, we want to break that down and unpack that statement. And so this is the whole purpose of us assembling this panel tonight. And at the conclusion of our breakdown, we're going to open it up for questions for everybody here, as we always do. And we're going to let you ask, and hopefully we can get you some answers. So, Steve, I'll go ahead and turn the reins over to you, brother, and tell us where we need to go.
All right. Yeah, that sounds good, Chris. Why don't we just go from question to answer and just stop after his answer. There may be a time or two I might stop you in between, but let's just go question and answer and see how it goes.
Okay.
When did you first notice that May was missing?
Saturday morning.
Okay. And tell me.
Her parents came by.
Okay. So this is a very simple question and a simple answer. But the question itself focuses his thought. And the focus was, when did you first notice that May was missing? Now, that's a little ambiguous. It could be ambiguous in his mind. There could be different times that he's thinking of. He may have had different thoughts. Maybe she should be home at a certain time, or maybe not. Maybe she might come home later. But the thing about this is that he's had a little bit of time to process between the time that he did know she was missing and this time that he did this interview. And what I've noticed about this is that he was specific in his answer. There was a little hesitation Saturday morning, so he's hesitated a little bit, and I don't really like to see that, but I'm pretty conservative with my analysis, and so I don't pick apart every little thing. But I will have to note little hesitation, and then he's specific. Saturday morning. What bothers me is that he's too casual about this. And the way I what I justify that with is that he said her parents came by, her parents came over to check on her. Her parents came by, like they just came by. They're in the neighborhood and they just stopped by. And so I note that he's trying to normalize this. He's trying to make it's too casual. And when they do that, it's typically what I've noticed from the thousands of cases that I've gone over is it raises a little red flag for me, because it generally means that or could mean that things were abnormal. And so I'm not going to say that that's what it is or anything, but now I'm on alert, okay, because it's too casual for a wife missing. Which brings me to another point. I'm going to look as we go through this statement at what his linguistic disposition is towards his wife. It's either going to be positive, neutral, or negative. And obviously we want it to be positive, and at the very least, neutral, no negative. And so I'm going to look for that. And I want to hear language that would reflect how a husband whose wife, I know that they've had issues and they had a few arguments and but they're still in the same house, they're still married, and they haven't got a divorce, and so that says something. I want to hear that he's concerned, and so that's what I'm going to look for as we go through that. I don't like to hear that the casualization about this, because it's very concerning.
Okay, Coop, thoughts?
I agree with Steve. I'm concerned by the casual response. It's very nonchalant. He has a nonchalant reference. There's no sense of emotion. Doesn't appear to be any stress, no concern in the way that he's expressing himself. What we find and Steve's the expert in this area. As a profiler, we focus on behavior. And so typically we look at the verbal behavior and the nonverbal behavior in the assessment of a crime scene, for example, that's been demonstrated by both the victim and the offender. And when there's the opportunity to look at the verbal behavior, as we have here, we can presume that anytime somebody says something, there's a preceding thought, feeling, and or emotion that occurs. And when he's talking about something so dynamic as what and dramatic as what we're talking about here, you expect to see some level of emotion and attachment. I don't sense that yet, but it's not telling me anything too much out of the ordinary. In other words, to the point that I'm going to pass any judgment, but it will raise questions for me, which it does here. And so when he then adds this comment about her parents came by, what we'll find out subsequently is that that's related now. That becomes a significant event for him. The fact that he even mentions that, to me, tells me that precipitated something that he's following up on or will follow up on. And as I read through this, I didn't realize it until I came to that point where I recognized that this was a precipitating event to something that he did as a result of those parents coming by. Right. Not recognizing what that was until we get there, but we will once we get there. So his response there about the parents is unrelated to the question, as Steve said, but it's significant from the perspective that there was an event that was triggered in reaction to them coming by. It was significant enough for him to make mention of it in this statement. And what we'll find out is, in fact, something did happen. And it's related to something that he felt or he did, that he was compelled to do as a result of them coming by.
Awesome. Dean, got any dovetail into that? Anything?
Nope. Let's keep going.
Okay, so
I got one thing.
go ahead, Steve. Yep.
As far as what Coop said, is just the significance of that is just like Coop said, is that what is so significant for us is that he actually mentioned that the question was answered Saturday morning, and then he added to that. And so that's what makes it so significant to us. It's like, you answered the question, man. Now, why add to it? And so whatever he adds to that after he's answered the question is extremely significant. It's extremely significant to him. And so it's extra significant for us. And there's lots of reasons behind it. But if you look at that, he's almost saying, I wouldn't have noticed unless her parents came by. It's because her parents came by that I noticed. And so that's what's going to be significant for us down the road later on in his statement. It's really a fascinating point.
Okay. Next, Dill.
Mhm. Just kind of walk me through like the last time you saw her and what was going on.
Thursday night. Like we got into a kind of an argument. And we've been having like problems. For about a year. We kind of like been up and down and stuff like that. But after that, I give her space.
Okay. Yeah, this is also fascinating. For me, it's all fascinating. But so he answered the question, and the question again is very focused. And if I love a question like this because it focuses his mind to a very specific thing. Just walk me through like the last time you saw her and what was going on. And that's what we want to know. The last time you saw her, that's the focus. Think about that and tell me what's going on. So listen, he says, Thursday, he answered, and then he qualified it Thursday night. So specifically Thursday night. And note the equivocation in here, how he minimizes all this. Like we got into kind of an argument, we've been having he's minimizing all this problems for about a year, been up and down and stuff like that. So he's downplaying this whole thing. So I also note that in his mind, when he's asked about the last time he saw her, and what was going on, what he did was his mind went way back in time for a full year. And so whatever happened that night in his mind has been building up for a full year. Okay. Now there's two other significant things here. He says, but after that, I give her space. So what he's saying with that word but, or however, it's a little word that goes unnoticed by most. It's one of those invisible words that our brains tend to gloss over. What it does is it minimizes what came before it and makes what comes after it more important. Okay, that's why we use it. So he's minimizing what came before it, and he says, after that is a skip in time. And what happens when you skip over time? You skip over information. So this is one of those areas, if I was able to ask Larry questions, I would come right back to this. And I'd want to know more detail about this because he left out information. After that tells me that he left out information. Now, what's most significant and what's most important to Larry here, I give her space. What he's saying is, this whole answer I just gave you, the most important thing I want you to know is I'm a good guy. No matter what she did or who she is, I'm the good guy. And who has a need to portray themselves as a good guy, a good person? It's someone that most of the time knows in their mind that they have they've done something that's not so good and they need to build themselves up. It's kind of they're rehabbing themselves. And so it's very significant that he's turned the focus from May to himself, and in context, he's making himself look good. Very significant. I'm interested to know what you guys saw in that as well.
Well, I noticed that he had he has a that before the but too. So he's saying stuff like that. So you've got that same kind of concept that you're talking about with the that. There's, it's stuff like that. And so you've got him adding in extra words within that as well. So I thought that was kind of interesting, kind of dovetailing with what you're talking about.
From my perspective, in support certainly of what's been said, that Thursday night, the way he says that, not only is it's a bit nonchalant, but at the same time, it sounds like he's saying it almost with exasperation, like, oh boy, here we go again. Now, and that could be for many reasons. We don't know exactly why. Is he going to repeat the story that he's told before, and maybe he's frustrated having to go back to that again? Or he recognizes that the response to this is very important, and consequently, he's got to think about what he says, and he's reiterating something he's already shared with us before, or some other interviewer, and then he goes, like we got into kind of an argument. Now, all of a sudden, he introduces, from an investigative perspective, something we call number one, an admission that something happened that night that was unpleasant between the two of them. And it also represents what we often refer to as a triggering event. Something that occurred that was unpleasant that led to something else as a result of that argument. And it was related to her leaving the house. In fact, the argument preceded her. When I say leaving the house, we don't know exactly when she left. We just know that was the last time he actually sees her. So it becomes significant because in terms of space and time and details about her whereabouts, it's following that argument that she's no longer seen. But there's reference to her being heard. Go ahead, Chris.
No, that's, remember we used to call that, sod, right? Some other dude. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, well, if you don't believe me, ask my guy out, my friend, I brought him, in the lobby. And of course, that guy's going to tell you the same story. But what struck me there was pretty interesting about, and Steve, your analysis of, and Dove, dovetailing into this thought process, the fact that, it sounded like this has been building for quite some time. And, California is not a real easy state to get a quick divorce, right? And so a lot of couples, because it's so expensive, and I'm not saying this is the case, but because it's so expensive, they'll kind of cohabitate together. And just kind of maybe that's something in the background that we should look into a little bit more here. But so I was just thinking out loud as that is a possibility, potentially looking forward. But so
I've got a question real quick.
Go ahead.
So my question is, Steve, you said that the first up there that you you try to give a wide berth and not get excited. We're into this 22 seconds, and we've already got multiple ums coming in here. Are those problematic?
Yeah. Now, yeah. So I do give him a wide berth in the beginning, but hey, if it continues on, well, now it's a pattern, and his pattern is that he's definitely. He knows he needs to think about what he's saying, and there's more hesitation. Here's the neat thing about the way our brains are created to operate. is that when we tell the truth, when we recite something from experiential memory, it's very, very easy. And there's when a memory is created, it's created with all the things going on around us, our sights, our sounds, the smells, what we taste, what we experience, what we feel, and it all has these neuron connections in our brain that they all form together and they create this memory. And because all that's done in our brain, when we recite it, when we remember it, we can spit it out. It's almost effortless. When we deviate from what was experiential, when we deviate from telling the truth in any way, for any form, for any reason, now we have to manufacture all that our fantastic brain did on its own, did for us. And we have to manufacture the words that we hope are going to sound as if it was experiential. And I'm telling you, it's practically impossible to do. And that's really the crux behind the science behind what we do. That's why we say the words will give you away. Your brain is giving you away, whether it's the words, your handwriting, your language, the behavior, it gives you away. That's what all of us are studying, and that's what our expertise is in. What does the brain normally do? And when we see something contrary to it, yeah, it becomes very significant. Here's a husband, here's a guy, I don't care if it's their husband or not. Here's a guy, if he's speaking from experiential memory, he's going to be able to spit this information out very quick. It's going to flow. It's going to be very smooth. It's going to be contextual, concise, and simple. And the more hesitation we have, it's an indication that there's stress in his brain. It's really the same type of stress that that was built into us for thousands of years ago, running from the saber-toothed tiger. Same thing. It doesn't matter if we're running from a tiger or feeling stressed from being in an interview with a reporter or with a detective, or it could be with your spouse. If you're going to lie, you're going to give yourself away. There's going to be signs of that deception, and when you recognize those things, that's significant, and that's a very good observation.
Well, I remember one of the statements you said in our class, the training was truthful people convey information, deceptive people tend to convince. And right. I think that's kind of what you're starting to see. So.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting too. There are a lot of ums and there's a lot of knows. And typically in an interview interrogation setting, we refer to ums as fillers. It buys time for the person to think about what they want to say, consider it before they say it. And then while it can be a habitual type of a terminology that's used in our language, and we see it today for sure, the pattern that Steve's talking about also within this context, from my perspective, makes me wonder if he's seeking support. He's seeking endorsement, if you will, from the interviewer, waiting to hear, yeah, I understand, in a sense. That's what he's seeking at the same time. So they become fillers. And one other thing that I wanted to ask you, Steve, when he says we got into kind of an argument. Now that's a kind of a descriptor and a qualifier at the same time, and suggesting that there's various levels of argumentation.
Yeah,
we can move from a disagreement to a violent interaction. So this kind of an argument, what does that suggest to you, Steve?
Yeah, that's a great point. This is part of the equivocation I was talking about, and that argument, like you pointed out, Coop, is a triggering event. We look for those in all types of these types of cases, and so that is definitely something that in his mind, he did not, we know it wasn't just a normal argument. It was kind of an argument. And so that suggests to me that there was an event. There was probably some arguing. I want to ask Larry, describe what an argument is.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to follow up with that. Describe what an argument between you and May looks like, sounds like, feels like, and see what he has to say. There's so much more there. That just kind of opened the door. It opened the door. I'm looking at his words, kind of, and I repeated it. That's how our brain works.
Well, and you know, is it? Go ahead.
It opened the door to more possibilities, and so kind of an argument is wide open. Was it a physical altercation? Was it a silent argument where you were ignoring each other? We don't know, but what we do know is that this was a triggering event that has been building up for over a year, and it is so significant. All this extra wording in here, and his trying to minimize what that was, is so important. And I'm certain that later on in this statement, we're going to see his brain focus on this triggering event, and his language is going to reveal what this might have looked like or felt like, or whatever it was. It's likely going to be in his language within this interview that he's having.
Yeah,
that's
it's
what I love
almost
about working with you guys. You guys go deep, quick, and that's awesome. I love that, because there's so much. The depth in the language is just phenomenal. So I love that we're able to go so deep in this. And if we had 5 hours, we'd spend the whole 5 hours on this, but we can't do that.
So it's almost as if there's a foundation, right? A level set foundation. And isn't it true? I mean, as we all know here, that's really the time when these filler type of incidentals, concepts start to really become, in play here. Like, this person was having, an affair, or that person was having an affair, from an investigative purpose, situation. I mean, yeah, okay. But this person's missing, where that is really, irrelevant information unless there's evidence that supports that other individuals of behaviors were in motion in the house when that person was last seen. I mean, if whoever's having an affair, or this person's having an affair, really for an investigation, if those people were, be it Larry, be it Maya, be it, cousins, grandparents, who cares? At this point, those investigators are going to interview all of those people. It does not change the fact that from an investigative position, the last person to see her was her husband. That is the crux of the information. So I think he's laying the foundation for, to your point, Steve, and to your point, Coop and Dean, that he's kind of dovetailing in, maybe things that maybe he's guilty of it. I don't know. It's none of my business. And that's the point for an investigation. If it did not have an impact on the problem, i.e., disappearing from that house, then that's a peripheral problem. And cops can go down rabbit holes too quickly and not stay focused on the thing. So let's keep moving. I just wanted to make that comment because I see a whole bunch of comments coming through on the chat. And those are all valid points, guys. We love you for pointing those up there. But let's keep moving. What do we got?
So just tell me, so you got into an argument, and then the last time you saw her was actually in the house?
Yes.
Okay.
Thursday.
So she didn't take a vehicle.
I'm out.
No.
No one saw her. So
Okay.
she didn't take a vehicle.
Yeah, I know it was a short question and a short answer, but we need to address this. So the question was, so just tell me, so you got into an argument, and then the last time you saw her was actually in the house? And he says, yes.
Yes.
And then his voice. So there's a word and there's the voice inflection. Now, he says briefly. And if you notice, the inflection was briefly. It was, now he could have been turning away from the phone for some reason, and the inflection went down. I don't know. So we can't put a whole lot of stock in that. But if he didn't turn away from the phone, it was one of those things where he's like, briefly, like almost like, I don't want you to hear that. But significant.
They'll replay that. They'll replay that. Replay that for Steve again. Replay that for everybody.
So just tell me, so you got into an argument, and then the last time you saw her was actually in the house?
Yes.
Okay.
Thursday.
So she,
You can hear it fade. Yeah, good catch.
Yeah.
okay.
It's interesting, Steve, because you and I have not spoken about this or shared thoughts on this. That's what I love about doing this is we either have different opinions or we validate each other. And I've yet to see us not validate one another from our different perspectives. But briefly was a big observation that I made as well with reference to it being a qualifier. Yes, I saw her, but it was just for briefly. It's as if he felt compelled to qualify the length of time that he actually saw her there, suggesting that it was maybe a brief encounter, and therefore, oh, by the way, this minimizes the length and nature of the interaction. Therefore, it implies that it was so brief that nothing could have possibly happened in that period of time, by the way.
Hey, how does that tie in, Steve, to the kind of an argument from earlier? Is there a correlation there, you think?
Oh, yeah. So there's an interesting phenomenon here. Now, this ties directly into that last question. And Chris, you're going to understand this for sure, because I know that you were a voice stress analyst. And so you had, what we learn as we interview people. And for those of you that don't know, a voice stress analyzer test, it measures the stress in the voice modulation. So it's the micro muscles in our voice box, and they will weaken when we are deceptive. And it could be the most benign little question, lie about the color of my shirt or the color of the wall behind me. Color of the wall behind me is pink, and the yes, they say yes, and it's a lie. They're stressed, even though it's a benign. There's no they're not going to go to jail over it or anything like that. Still, the brain knows what it knows, and it knows the truth. We were designed by our higher power to tell the truth, and when we go contrary to any way that we were designed to operate and to communicate, it creates stress in the brain. It doesn't like it, and so what happens is that our brain will feel that stress, even subconsciously. If we don't even have to be cognitively aware of it, but it will feel that stress, and that stress will last for anywhere from 5 to 12 seconds is the average, according to different studies and whatnot. 5 to 12 seconds, that's a long time, especially when you're being asked questions and given an answer in a situation like this. So if Larry is deceptive, he's still feeling the stress from the last question. Okay. If there's if he's trying to skew things, and now he's remembering the last time that he saw her. Now, if there was something wrong, if there was foul play, then he's still feeling that. And his brain doesn't want to tell. He doesn't want to reveal that. And so it's what we call carryover stress. Okay. So now, Larry, he's focused the last time you saw her was actually in the house? That's the question. Actually in the house? Okay. So Larry says, yes, briefly. Like, I did see her in the house. And for me, because he had to qualify that with the briefly, there's a question now of, is Larry trying to hide something? Did he actually see her? Because she says actually in the house. And I'm wondering, did Larry actually see her in the house and then maybe somewhere else? This was like kind of an argument. You know, Larry's minimizing. I'm now seeing this pattern. He's hesitating. He's minimizing. And I'm wondering if he's minimizing the last time he saw her. What's interesting, because we know that this question is very specific to the last time he saw her, and was it in the house? If there's any type of, if he's trying to deceive this reporter in any way, it's going to carry over to the next question. We're going to have carryover stress. Okay, so that's what's really significant about this. I love the question, and I'm anxious to see what comes up with the next question. If that stress carries over, if it does, now we're really on to something.
Okay. Coop, did you want to say anything, or should we continue?
Oh, go ahead, proceed. I've got something on the next deal here, though.
Okay. Okay.
So she
Go
didn't,
ahead.
she didn't take a vehicle. No one saw her leave.
No, but on Friday, I could still hear, but I didn't physically see her when I got home.
Can we just stop that for a second?
Yeah.
And then thanks. So I want to stop this, but then I want to go back and replay that question and replay, because it's a lengthy answer that he's going to give you, and I want to replay that. But I don't want you to miss this, and I don't want this, what I'm going to say, get lost in everything else that we might see in his answer. And so I just want to point out that I was talking about the carryover stress, and the question was, so she didn't take a vehicle? And he says no. Okay. Now what happens is so significant, because he says, but on Friday, and he went back in time to when? He's now going back to the last question that he was asked. You guys, that's carryover stress. Okay, yeah. When he can't stay focused on this one question, I know now that he's feeling stress, and so I'm on high alert. Okay, yeah. Because he couldn't stay focused on that. All right, yeah, so these two questions that she asked prior to this have been like mind viruses for Larry. The last time you saw her, what was going on, and was that actually in the house? Larry now, his mind is spinning out of control. Okay, this stress, he has to speak to that. He can't get off of it. Now, if you were not trying to hide anything, would you be able to move on? Yes, you could move on. But if you are trying to hide something, you can't get off of it. And our natural tendency is to explain things. Mm-hmm. Think about when you're a little kid and you're caught at school throwing spit wads, and the teacher calls home and says, "Hey, Steve was throwing spit wads in class," and my mom says, "Steve, why were you throwing spit wads?" I'm like, "Well, Mom, let me explain. Everyone was doing it. And besides, they were throwing spit wads at me." And you have this innate need to express and explain why you were doing whatever it was that wrong. Even though you know it was wrong, you still have to explain that. And so that's what I'm seeing here. And so now I want to listen very closely to what Larry says, what's coming up here. There's things I don't want to hear, okay? What I do want to hear is a good linguistic disposition, a positive linguistic disposition about his wife. Okay, I'm still listening for that. By the way, I've been taking a tally, and I'm in the negative column here. I don't have anything positive yet. I don't want to hear any persuasion or justification or explanation as to why something happened that he wasn't asked about. I don't want to hear any denigration him speaking negatively, inferring anything negative about May. I don't want to hear anything like that. And so with that in mind, now let's replay that question and let's just play the full answer. Unless, Greg, you have something you want to interrupt, I'm perfectly okay with that too.
Yeah, I just want to add something, and this I'm putting probably more into this than a lot of people would be comfortable with, because all he says is no. After he says, though, in response to her question, so she didn't take a vehicle. There was no hesitation, no. And then he moves right on. That to me is it's an absolute.
Yes.
And he knows she didn't take the vehicle, and which implies, therefore, when she left under the control of something or somebody else. She did not leave on her own volition. She left as a result of some other interaction that's going on, and I'm probably trying to interpret more there than is necessary, but that's where it goes when I, based upon a lot of experiences and education and training, etc. That's when you make that positive of a statement, you not only know the answer to that question, but you know the answer to a lot of questions that aren't coming out yet. And that's definitely one of them with respect to, all right, then how did she leave that house? It was not as a result of her taking a car.
Interesting.
I agree with that. There's no equivocation whatsoever. It's very quick. It's concise. It's simple. It's to the point. That's because the brain he's recalling something very experiential. That's something he knows. And I agree 100%. That is an absolute. It came very quickly. Boom. It's done. 100%.
Yeah. So, Dale, let's go back up and replay that segment again, and then do you want us to keep moving, Steve, or do you?
Oh yeah, let's play the question and his answer now.
Yep. Go ahead.
So she didn't take a vehicle.
No.
No one saw her leave.
No, but on Friday, I could still hear her, but I didn't physically see her when I got home. But that's like normal too, because we have lots of bedrooms, it's a 2-story house, and we kind of I give her space. So, but that's why every time someone says Thursday, yes, it's physically, or visually see her, but for me, it's Friday night. I can hear her wrestling around, making dinner for herself in another bedroom. I'm sleeping with the kids in another bedroom.
Okay.
So upstairs and she's downstairs, kind of deal, kind of like a roommate thing. It's kind of like giving each other space. Well, sure. I don't need the space. She always wants the space.
Got it.
Okay. Wow. Wow. There's so much there.
Yeah, put your seatbelts on. Everybody, put your seatbelts on.
Yeah, strap in. Okay.
Yeah, where do you start?
Yeah, well, I'm going to start at the beginning. How's that? Okay, because it's easiest. I want to jump to the audibles, but I'm gonna let it go. I'm going to start at the beginning here. He says he gives the absolute no, answers that question. But on Friday, I could still hear so he's now telling us could still hear. This is that little phrase right there, that term I could still hear means he heard he's referring to something that he heard before. All right. His brain is taking him back to some point. Now, Friday is when he says on Friday, that's open to interpretation. We would need to ask him, well, what time on Friday are you referring to? Early morning, mid-morning, afternoon? What is it on Friday? Whatever he's doing, his mind is now referring back to something that was prior to. Could have been early Friday morning. We don't know. I think very significant, though, he tells us now something in the negative. I didn't, and by the way, he self-censored. Let's not skip that. He didn't tell us what he could still hear. Okay, it's like his brain warning him, you better shut up. Don't carry on with this thought process. Whatever it is that he heard previously, he doesn't want to talk about it. He's self-censored. He just like stopped it. So then he tells us what he didn't see in the negative. Anything in the negative is more important. It's one of those things that when something is stated in the negative, it sticks with us, more than something in the positive. And I'll give you a quick example. When I was a teenager, my boss told me, hey, take the company work truck down and get an oil change. Put 10W30 in the vehicle. Whatever you do, or just put 10W40 in the vehicle. He says, whatever you do not put 5W30. And that, what he told me in the negative, stuck with me more than what he told me in the positive. And what did I do? I put the wrong oil in there. I got back. He's like, what the heck did you do? It's something that if you want your kids to do something, what do? You tell them, don't do that. And you walk out of the room, what are they going to do? They're going to do just that. It's just, human nature. So when he tells us something in the negative, it's more important to him. So what's elevated this importance? Well, it's something physically. This is the word physically. And now I'm coming back to the last time he saw her, this triggering event that we just talked about. It's only been seconds since we've seen this carryover stress, these his answers to these pointed questions about the last time that he saw her. And now his mind is coming back to it, something he heard, and then he's getting off what he heard and going to physically. I didn't physically see her when I got home, but that's like normal too. And so now he's going to give us a reason why this is normal. Here we go again, normalizing something. And when I see somebody normalize something, automatically I'm like, okay, it wasn't the norm. When people tell us, so in an interview, if I ask somebody what happened, tell me what happened. And they tell me, well, I came into work and I normally answer phone calls between, when I get into work and then at noon, I normally go to lunch. They just avoided telling me what they actually did by normalizing the situation. It's the same thing. I've seen it in sex crimes cases as well. When a guy that's the suspect of sexual assault or molest or whatever it is, he says, well, I'm just a normal guy. Well, now I know he's abnormal. It means that he's been told he's not normal or thinks he's not normal. Larry's kind of doing the same thing right here. But that's like normal too, he says. And now if you don't believe me, let me give you a reason why. And he's doubling down on that. He's giving us a reason why. And remember, that's one of the things I told you I didn't want to see is him giving us a reason why when he wasn't asked. And he says, because we have lots of bedrooms and 2-story house and, a lot of knows, which could be, it could be part of his language. It could be he wants buy-in. It could be a filler. I'm not quite sure yet. But I know that he's hesitated. There's a lot of hesitation here. And this explanation and justification is just over the top as to why this would be a normal thing for him that he didn't physically see her when he got home. He says, well, and then his brain self-censored. His brain says, well, I give her space. So here we go again. Now there's another notch in the good guy column. I'm the good guy. And so I'm thinking, Larry, I think something happened. You might not be quite the good guy you're making yourself out to be. And, there's a lot more that we're going to continue on here, but let me just throw it back to you guys as far as, that part that we've just talked about, and then we can continue on with the other part.
Hey, and just one other thing, while each of us is given, our like the analysis there, everybody else kind of mute out because we're getting a little feedback. I'm looking at some of the chat, some of the folks are saying, and that way, who's ever talking gets a clear line through. So go ahead, Coop, you're up.
Okay, going back to, but on Friday I could still hear like I didn't physically see her when I got home. That as Steve has mentioned, that's very interesting. I could still hear. He heard something at some point. We don't know exactly when in time, but if it's in relation to this, maybe it was something that he did hear when he did get home. And it has to do with May. He heard something from her, whether it was her in a certain context after an event, and whatever he may have heard in relationship to that event, he heard something enough where he needed to say something about it. He didn't physically see her, and then he follows up to indicate that, in fact, nobody ends up seeing her. He's only heard her there. And it'd be interesting to know from the kids' perspectives what they saw or didn't see. When's the last time they saw her? When's the last time they heard her rustling around, for example, cooking dinner, etc., that he makes reference to? And those are really, when he throws those out, it sounds as if they're possibilities. They're not concrete. It's really quite evasive. It's not specific. And he talks about, let's see, so upstairs and she's downstairs, kind of like a roommate. Well, this has been going on for a year. And to live with your spouse as a roommate for a year, and he keeps making reference to this, he gives her space. Oh, and by the way, I'm not the one that needed space. She's the one that needed space. And she even makes a statement eventually is, she's the one that always needed space. Well, that's really interesting to me. A projection that suggests that giving her that space may have been part of a thought process in relationship to the argument and to whatever the consequences may have been for that argument. So finally, with respect to that, always her that wants her space. That is so, to me, so significant. And there must be a specific reason for it. If she always wants her space, that implies permanency. Always and space implies permanency to me. That she wants permanency, space permanency, if she's the one that's presenting it. And is there, one has to ask the question after a year, are they just still living, cohabitating together as happy roommates? No. Most people going through this process are in the process of getting divorced eventually. And is there some triggering event that occurred associated with her departure from the home? And so one must ask, are there any divorce proceedings that have been initiated by anybody? And this thing about space alludes to, I think, something to do with that.
Interesting analysis. Dean, do you have anything to add?
Well, my notes that I had put down looking at this goes back, I think, to what Steve was talking about, and that was just the lack of the psychological commitment that you're seeing in that particular statement. And then I thought it was interesting in the middle of that to introduce the kids back in. So almost like there's a little bit of trying to make the story more believable and in regards to what he, quote, heard down there. So those were just some of my notes that I had taken a look at it. And probably overall for me was just that feeling of the story isn't smooth. It's not, speedy process. And the victims that I've sat down and spent time with and families of victims, when it comes to the details of stuff, it seems to be, this is almost like I'm trying to pull pieces together to make this story believable rather than just, this is what happened. This is what I heard. When I've been with families, oftentimes they're almost like, here's the facts. We need to get going. We've got to find this person. Here's the details. And this feels like we're kind of pulling from a smorgasbord of ideas out there, and we're trying to make it's not coming together very well.
Yeah, so let's keep moving.
Hey, hold up. There's more. I'm not done with this one yet.
Okay.
Stay in your seats. Still driving. So let me just go back to a few things. It's interesting that Larry, every time we notice sensitivity so far from Larry, that things aren't quite working out. He's feeling stress in his language, which indicates that there's something going on in his mind. What does he do? He goes to this building himself up, and it's kind of, and as he's doing so, he's denigrating May. He says, "I give her space." It's like his brain is signaling, "You're not doing so well. Why don't you go build yourself up and make yourself look to be a good guy, because things aren't going for you well over here." And so that's what he did. I give her space. But this acute need that he has to explain why he didn't physically see her when he got home. And by the way, I believe him. He says, "I didn't physically see her when I got home." That is reliable. That's a reliable statement. I'm just bothered that he says physically. He used that word instead of just saying, when I got home, she wasn't there. When I got home, I didn't see her. But he didn't. And so I know now his brain is really focused on this physically part. I didn't physically see her when I got, and there's a timing issue. When I got home. From where? Where were you? I really want to know that. Where were you? And why is it that now you don't physically see her? And why are you trying to explain this, justify this, persuade me so much? Because he is. He says, but that's why every time someone says Thursday, yes, it's physically, no, now he's used the word physically twice. Guys, that is a huge deal in the context of this triggering event, this kind of argument that he says he has. I'm now thinking, now I know why it was kind of an argument. This is what Greg was talking about. It's because there was something physical going on there. And if I was the investigator interviewing Larry, I would be asking, definitely, describe in detail what this argument looked like, what it sounded like, what was this argument you're talking about, and let him describe it. I'm thinking that it was a physical argument. So maybe something happened. It was an accident. I don't know, but I think that there's something physical that happened there. Now look what he does. He says, Thursday, yes, it's physically, and his brain now says, you should be using that word physically. Let's get off that. And now he corrects himself. That's even more significant to me. That's why I think this was a physical argument. Okay, there was something that happened there that was physical. So he says, or visually see her. He didn't say visually I see her or I visually see her. He psychologically ejected himself from that statement, meaning I need to put distance between me and what I'm trying to say here, this explanation I'm trying to give you. I don't want to be all in here. I don't want to psychologically be here. So it's very simple. Just take the I out. And now I'm not psychologically here, but I want you guys to interpret that that's what I'm saying, that I was physically there, that I visually see her, but he's not doing that. So it's very significant that he psychologically ejected himself from what he's saying. And he goes on, he says, but, which minimizes that. Okay, so even a bigger clue. For me, it's Friday night, Now I can't believe that because I'm seeing all this other stuff. Came in context of this overt need to explain why it was that he didn't see her at that point in time. He wants us to believe. So now he doubles down on that. He continues this explanation where really one explanation shouldn't be needed. An explanation shouldn't be needed. He says, I can hear rustling around, making dinner. And I want you to notice he didn't say, I heard, past tense, which is experiential. I heard. He says, I can hear. He now puts himself in this present tense mode. When he's been using past tense and he slips into this present tense, guys, this is what we call narrative building, or storytelling is another way to put it. Okay. I can't believe this. He says, I can hear rustling around, making dinner for herself and another bedroom, and sleeping with the kids in another bedroom. You think about that, that doesn't even make sense. He's shooting all over himself. That's one of those signs that Dean was talking about, that we look for concise, simple, contextually, flowing statements that make sense, that comes easy. This is disruption in that process of the brain. And when you have that disruption, there's a reason for it. It's stress. It's that stress we talked about before, guys. And at this point in time, I have to say, Larry is deceptive. It doesn't mean that at this point, I'm just going to say he killed his wife. I can't say he killed his wife or that he did anything wrong, but he is deceptive about something relating to this argument, seeing her at the time that he wants us to believe he saw her. Okay. There's deception. Okay. And so now now I know I have deception. He's withholding information. He's deceptive about it. I'm going to now look for the linguistic disposition that he has towards her, positive, neutral, or negative. I want to see some positives here. I want to see something that really sheds some better light on Larry and takes us away from that deception.
Hey, Steve.
Mentioned that.
Steve, let me just add something here.
A roommate kind of thing, and he says in here, it was kind of a roommate kind of thing, but notice that this doesn't make sense either. So upstairs and she's downstairs, kind of like a roommate thing, kind of like giving each other space. He's tripping over his words, and it continues on. And then he drops the hammer. What is it? He goes back to the same theme. When things aren't going well for him, what does he do? Denigrates Maya, builds himself up, and that's exactly what he does here in the end. He says, well, I don't need space. She always wants her space. So another check mark in the negative column, for his linguistic disposition towards Maya, building himself up where it shouldn't be needed. He's taken this focus from her to him. And I agree with Greg, when you really look into this, you dig down into this, she always wants her space. There's a problem. And this goes back to this argument, which I now believe was physical, this triggering event. She always wants her space. This doesn't sound good. This sounds, like Greg said, that's something that was permanent, that maybe he didn't agree with. And I know he didn't agree with it because he says, well, I don't need the space. She always wants her space. It's on her. It's not me. I don't need space, but so it's so significant here, what he's doing. Fascinating too.
Yeah. Coop, just a thought, Steve, as we go back up a little bit, when he makes reference to, and as we've said, it's disjointed. It doesn't even make sense until you think about it. Makes sense in terms of he's sensitive to it, so sensitive that he has to make reference to it. And that is like rustling around, making dinner for herself. And notice she's not making it for the family. She's not even making it for the children. She's making it for herself. So how detached are they, and how separated are they? And I think he's sensitive to that, and it could certainly fall in line with some of these triggering events, or the precipitating stressors that are occurring, building up to an event. And then he says, and another bedroom and sleeping with the kids in another bedroom. There is no reason to even make mention of these things, except that it bothers him. He's sensitive to it, and it suggests the nature of that relationship.
Yeah.
So I have a question too, and that is when it talks about when he says, "But for me, it's Friday," and then he says Friday again. It's like he needs it to be Friday rather than it being factually that it was Friday. Does anybody else see that or feel that? Or it's almost like he's trying to get it to Friday rather than just saying, normally wouldn't they just say this is, this happened on Friday?
Well, there's definitely something significant about that. Because
Yeah, Thursday night, Friday morning. Yeah, Thursday,
Yeah.
Friday into that time.
And
I agree with that.
for me, it's Friday night.
Yeah.
So something's occurring at that time, whether it has to do with in relationship to the scenario and the account that he's laying out. So everything makes sense. Everything falls into line within that story. Or something could have happened. Something additional could have happened to the Thursday night. Also happened on a Friday night. Something else is going on. Another event that we don't know. But it is significant. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that kind of language I've heard from should I say habitual liars or manipulative people, that when their hand is caught in the cookie jar, so to speak, and they refuse to back down. It's like, well, this is my truth. For me, it was Friday night, which that just tells me, and if you think about it, it means that for other people out there, they wouldn't say that was Friday night, but for me, it was Friday. It was Friday night. And so it creates question. It creates that he's even questioning what he's saying. And then back to another point, if you want to go a little bit deeper, something to dovetail off something that Greg said, I can hear like rustling around, making dinner for herself and another bedroom. So that's discombobulated, but what he did there is he put her by herself. That's a biological mother. I don't know of maybe but a handful of biological mothers that wouldn't be all about the kids, and especially kids that age. And even if there's issues in the family, typically they'll make dinner for everyone, no matter what. But there's factors, alcohol, drugs, those types of things where they wouldn't think about the rest of the family. But I'm telling
which none of that is in play here, by the way. None of that.
Yeah, none of that's in play. Thank you, Chris. Mm-hmm. So what he did is he isolated her, and he put her by herself. In his mind, at this point in time, Maya is isolated. It's deep, but that's what he has let us know, that at that point in time, she is by herself and she's isolated.
Steve,
go ahead, Coop.
I just want to throw this out real quick, and this might sound a little wild to you, but as you put these apparently disjointed little statements together, because they're significant enough for him to say it, but they're disjointed and they don't make sense until it's all together within the same context. But these are disjointed. Still, like, for example, up above, I could still hear like. And then we jump down here where he then says, let's see, she's in making dinner for herself, another bedroom, and sleeping with the kids in another bedroom. But if you were to take another bedroom in another bedroom, I still hear like for herself, and that she wants space. This other bedroom, and I still hear. That just concerns me with respect to the whole scenario as it outlines. I mean, if something happened, maybe she at some point ends up being separated into another bedroom, and she can be heard in that bedroom because, as you said, Steve, she's placed, she's separated, but could it be she's also physically separated? into another bedroom for a period of time during this scenario, however it lays out.
Yeah, it's definitely alarming. When the deeper you get into this, it's the fact that he chose to add that extra language in another bedroom, not once but twice. That's significant to him, and I agree 100% with Coop that it goes back to the I can still hear. For me, it's the picture's being painted. Something physically happened. Something, whatever that argument was, there was something physical about it. And like I said, whether there was an accident, whatever it was, he left. She was alone in another bedroom, and he could still hear something at that, whatever it was, but it was in another bedroom. And I don't know if this is going to be the bedroom that the parents came to look into it, that when they came over, when parents came by, and that's when I noticed. Otherwise, I would have just left that bedroom there. I don't know, but I think as we continue on, we might get more answers to what we're seeing here, or answers or confirmation as to what we're seeing. So I'm excited to continue on.
Yeah, and just as a reminder to everybody that's listening in from all over the world, we've got Dean Jackson, Greg Cooper, and Steve Johnson here. We're analyzing Larry Millete's statement about his wife, Maya, who's been missing. And just as a reminder, guys, when we're each not talking, just to kind of mute so we don't get a lot of overlay. One of the things that struck me just listening and then just looking back over the statement again is a lot of the pre-incident stuff, and I know you're going to get into that coming up here, Steve, where, he was constantly, giving her space, right? She's out there, outdoorsy, she's a hiker. But if I went and I looked at her, I did a little behavioral analysis on her Facebook page and her likes and those types of things. And what's really interesting is this is a very eclectic woman. And what struck me was the fact that, what you just said a couple of minutes ago about the fact that he's compartmentalizing her within these two rooms, yet simultaneously, he's the guy that's constantly, saying, yeah, she's out there doing 1,000 different things with the Jeep Club, with this, with that. So it's almost, to me, in my past experience, there's a major control mechanism going on here that, is pretty consistent in these types of domestic problems that, maybe there was something that just kind of, went off the rails, but we'll get into that. So Steve, where are we headed? Where do you want to go? Keep moving? Now you're on mute. I muted you. I'm sorry, buddy.
Yeah,
there you go. Okay.
Question and answer. Thanks.
Okay, so Dill, let's keep moving.
So it was like Friday, and then you left or went somewhere, and then came back, and she wasn't there, right?
Yes,
Okay.
I left her with my two girls because they do their homeschool,
Mm-hmm.
and then I just had my son with me. So when I came back, she was still there on Friday. We can hear her downstairs, like after I'm done giving the kids baths and feeding them and everything. And
you stop right there, because he's going to keep talking. So I want to just stop right there and let's just cover a few things. So I'll just reiterate the question. She says, so it was like Friday, and then you left or went somewhere and then came back, and she wasn't there, right? He says, yes. So he's answered the question, and now he's going to explain his answer. And so I want to know when he gives this explanation, when he continues on, is it going to help, or is it going to be? Is he just simply conveying information to us, or is he convincing us of something, which is what we don't want to see? And so he says, yes, I left her with my 2 girls. Why? He says, why? It's in his mind. You better explain it. He says, because they, do their homeschool. So I listened to that and I thought, is that how I would say that? His 2 girls are doing homeschool. I left her with my 2 girls. Now, what does that sound like? Who's taking care of who? It sounds like the girls are taking care of her. Now, why would he have that perception in his mind? This is his verbalized perception of reality playing out. That's what we're hearing here. Why would, in his verbalized perception of reality, the girls be able to take care of her rather than her? Why couldn't she take care of the girls? You see what I'm saying here? She's not, in his mind, not capable of taking care of those girls. I know that goes a little bit deep, but I'm building now on everything that we've been seeing. And if my wife stayed home because my girls had homeschool, she stayed home for whatever reason from some activity or whatever it was, I would say she either stayed home with the girls or I left my girls with my wife. They couldn't go with me and my son. They stayed home with my wife. My wife is the authority figure, the adult, the caregiver, the one that's going to take care of the 2 girls. That's the natural order here. He's out of order. So I'm thinking in his perception, in his mind, I don't think he thinks May is able to take care of herself at this point. Okay.
Yeah. And it begs the question, what was her condition at that
right.
time? And
right. Yeah.
He says she was there on Friday. She was still there on Friday. And he keeps going back to this Friday thing. Well, she could have still been there on Friday, but what condition was she in on Friday? And she may have been there with the 2 girls, as you said, Steve, because that's very significant language in terms of who's the guardian here. But were the 2 girls even aware that she was there?
Yeah.
Right.
Who's right. Yeah. Who's homeschooling the girl? Because we know in her victimology, in her profile, she holds a very, very, very high profile job out at 32nd Street in San Diego. So we know she's a very, very structured woman, very organized, very highly respected. She's a mentor. She just goes down the list, but all of a sudden, to your point, the husband's kind of got her like, well, I'm not really sure if, she's able to take care of anything. That's an interesting observation for sure. Go ahead.
I was going to ask what you guys think the significance, because in the upper statement above, he says, I could hear her. But here, all of a sudden, he says, we could hear her. So it's almost, he switches from him hearing her to now we can hear her. And it feels like going back, I think what you were talking about earlier, Steve, of we're coming back to that convincing language. So it's almost like he doesn't, if you don't believe that I heard her, well, we heard her. So he's adding more people to this group that to try to reaffirm that position.
Yeah. So this comes back to that little analogy that I gave you earlier about me getting caught throwing spit wads in school, and the teacher calls home and my mom asked me, hey, why were you throwing spit wads? And I say, instead of defending just myself, I say, Mom, I say, everyone was doing it, Mom. Everyone. We like to bury ourselves in the crowd, so to speak. The old adage, misery loves company. Well, you know what? When people have done something wrong, they like to bury themselves in the crowd instead of being standing out there in the open, kind of exposed to this deception and wrongdoing. I already know that there's deception. I've seen the deception in his language. It's a done deal. I have it. So people don't like to be alone with that. And so they will bury themselves in the crowd. And so it's almost as if he's saying, if you don't believe me, and one of you guys referred to this earlier, if you don't believe me, well, ask so-and-so in the lobby, ask my son, or what is he's not saying to ask them, but he's inferring that, hey, there's more than one person, so you must believe me. And that's exactly what that is. That's a very good observation. The other thing about this is he not only gives us one explanation, but he gives us two explanations as to, and he uses this unnecessary language, it's extra wording. So it's, yes, I left her with my two girls because they have homeschool. I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. And then I just had my son with me. And then as a little bit of a skip over time, missing information, I just had my son with me. So when I came back, she was still there on Friday. And if can you see the extra language in there that he doesn't need to use those words? It's kind of like what we saw earlier. He added in another bedroom and another bedroom. He used a lot of superfluous words. Well, it's important for him. And why? Because he's trying to convince. He's not conveying information. If it's experiential, it flows smoothly. If it's not experiential, it's discombobulated and he trips over himself. And that's what he's doing here. And then it's this last little part. He doubles down on this explanation as to, because he knows this seeing that she was still there on Friday thing and hearing her, there's so much explanation about it that he senses that it may not be working, or that he's not convincing enough. And so he says, like you said, Dean, we can hear her downstairs, like after I'm done giving kids bath and feeding them and everything. He didn't say that he heard or we heard her giving the kids a bath and feeding them. He normalized this. He said it was like that, like after giving the kids a bath and feeding them, present tense. This is what that normal factor that I was trying to explain before. He normalized this, and it's a way for him to, he's throwing the line out there, the bait. Will you accept it because this is what I normally hear, that's what I heard that night? Please accept that. That's what that is. And
he never actually possesses that, does he? He says, like after done. He never says I was done. Never said I cooked them. He was just giving a scenario, done, kids, baths, and feeding them and everything. Well, everything. What that incorporates an awful lot of things.
Yeah,
it's everything. And that he never says it was he that fed the kids or bathed the kids and everything. As you said, he just throws it out there as well. Just buy this.
Exactly.
Like after. Yeah,
exactly.
And we're pegging the meter. We've got the meter pegged. We've to just about to everything.
Yeah, he's running.
Now all of a sudden we jump to Saturday morning. So what happened the rest of that night?
Yeah, so let's continue with the rest of what he says.
Let's keep going, Dill.
Morning, when her parents came by, her door was locked. I found the keys to the bedroom, and I opened it, and she was already gone. So maybe she went to a morning sunrise hike, because she didn't go jeeping because this one.
I'm sorry, he's going to say a lot here, but what he just said is so significant that we can't gloss over this, and I don't want it to get lost in something else. Did you guys catch this? That he said, and on Saturday morning, when her parents came by, her door was locked. So it's her door, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I found the keys to the bedroom, and it implies that he went searching. Again, who does that? I found the keys. I did this. Who cares what you did? I mean, if your wife is missing, would you pause to verbalize the things that you did, or would you just say, I got the key and I open, or I just opened the door? How about that? I just opened the door.
Yeah.
But it's just this subtle building up of himself. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I found the keys to the bedroom and I open it. Not I opened, past tense. I
That means
opened
back into present tense. Yeah.
back to the present tense. And I would expect to hear, but she wasn't there. But what does he say? This is eerie. She was already gone.
Mm.
Ooh.
Oh, play that back. Play that back. Good catch, Steve. Dill, play that back. That's huge.
Yes,
Okay.
I left her with my two girls. Yes,
Okay.
I left her with my two girls because they do their homeschool,
Mm-hmm.
and then I just had my son with me. So when I came back, she was still there on Friday. We can hear her downstairs, like after I'm done giving the kids baths and feeding them and everything. And on Saturday morning, when her parents came by, her door was locked. I found the keys to the bedroom, and I opened it, and she was already gone. So
Wow. Yeah, no, that good. You nailed it. That was awesome.
Yeah.
That's kind of
That is-
permanent too, isn't it?
Okay, so let's stop there for a second then. So let's narrow this down, right? Because he's just given us a time frame, right?
Yeah,
to work
he did.
backwards.
Yeah.
To work backwards, right from there.
Yeah.
So Chula Vista, if you're listening, okay, he just locked it in right there. He just locked it in. So we don't even have to go to Saturday. We just got to stay in Friday and Thursday. But apparently Friday, she's cooking and doing the other things, homeschooling, and that leaves Thursday. That's going to be an interesting. So keep going, Steve.
Yeah. And let me just point out that on Friday, I don't think we have the commitment there that she was actually cooking or anything. That is what she normally does.
Yeah,
He backed off that commitment. He even backed off psychologically of visually seeing her there on Friday. So, guys, your timeline is she was already gone when her parents got there. I can't commit that I saw her or even heard her on Friday. I want you to believe that, but he's not saying that. Psychologically, when you're committing to something, it's in your language, and it's absolute. We don't have that in his language. So now we're back to Thursday night. Could be Thursday, could be Friday morning early, which would be sometimes considered part of Thursday night, depending. But I think your timeline is becoming shortened. We're working it backwards and we're eliminating. Yeah.
Which could
Don't you
put the
think
two
that-
rooms. Go ahead, Coop. I'm sorry. Well, real fast, Coop. Which could put the two rooms into play, because if something were to happen, then maybe he needs that second room, right? To what you're pointing out earlier, Coop and Steve, and Dean, where maybe there's something that went down. I got the kids in the house, so I'm going to need a second space, and he's just kind of processing it, and it's just coming out, and it's just kind of flowing out there. Go ahead, Coop. What were you going to say?
Just a reference when he makes this statement, she was already gone. That's pretty permanent. That's almost a statement of knowledge, not just that she wasn't in the room. The room was empty, the room was vacant, but she's already gone. To me, that's very significant. So, and then he adds, you ever notice that he never refers to her one time throughout this whole conversation by her name?
Yeah, didn't
It's always
bring her up.
and she.
Yeah, not once did he say May.
No,
Not one time.
never.
Interesting. Dean, did you want to dovetail into anything before Steve keeps going here? I keep cutting him off.
Yeah, the only thing that keeps popping into my head, and it goes back to what maybe I'd said a little bit earlier, but it's almost like he's throwing things out there because he knows there's a timeline issue. And
Yeah.
so if we go back and we say, well, things maybe happened on Thursday, I've got to get her through to this so I can build some time in there. And then I think also the phrase, and maybe Steve was the one that was talking about it, where, this whole issue about him gaining access to the room. To me, that kind of felt like he was trying to say she would have been safe. He's throwing that out there, saying the door was locked. I mean, I had to go looking for it's almost like we're making an excuse for me to even get in there. I had to go looking for it. Was kind of how that struck me. So
interesting. Steve, keep us moving.
Yeah. The reason
I just wanted to say that when he says she was already gone, that also suggests that at one time she was there. She was in that room at one time and locked in that room at one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now she's gone. Yeah.
And that's a great point. And she was already gone. You're absolutely right. There's finality there. She was already gone. And it makes me think that this room might have been in his mind, maybe this other bedroom that he's talking about. Interesting. What makes me go there is because his language changed. The ownership of that room actually changed within the short little answer. He said her parents came by, her door was locked. Ownership, it's her door. Okay.
Yeah, he transferred that. Yeah.
He transferred. I found the keys to her bedroom. No, the bedroom. It now has changed. And what's changing it? I open it and she was already gone. She was already, it's like,
it's no longer hers. It's no longer her
hers.
bedroom. It's now
she's
the
not
bedroom.
capable of it. This brings me back to the prior answer that he gave. Maya was not in any shape to be there to take care of her kids. So I left her with my kids. And so this is all playing out. When you put these little subtle pieces together, guys, it paints this it puts all the pieces together. We have this picture that's coming together, and the brain cannot contain all this. So we're getting a very good, vivid picture of what's going on in Larry's brain at the time that he was interviewed right here. And I'm telling you what, it's not looking good. And the fact, just like you guys said, that he has not said her name one time is very confirming that he's psychologically distancing himself from her. He doesn't want to be with her psychologically for whatever reason. And it's all the while that he's subtly elevating himself. It's not a good sign. Not a good sign.
Yeah. No, good catch. Good catch. Let's keep moving. We're doing good here. What do we got?
One time, maybe she went to a morning sunrise hike. Because she didn't go jeeping because that's one of her other hobbies, the Jeep group. And, she would have taken that. So assumed maybe one of her friends picked her up and, they went hiking or wine tasting. She likes to go wine tasting in Temecula. That's her other thing, or brunch early morning.
Let's stop right there. I want to go back to a very significant thing, and it's something that most people will gloss over. He said, he gives us this reason why he thought that maybe she went to a morning sunrise hike. And by the way, wouldn't it just be enough to say, I thought maybe she might have gone on a hike? Or he could say morning sunrise hike, that's fine. I thought maybe she went on this hike. That would be fine. But what he did was he gave us a reason as to why he thought that, because she wouldn't, or she would, and he self-censored, she didn't go jeeping. And this is why she didn't go jeeping, because there's one of her other hobbies in the Jeep group, and she would have taken that. And so it becomes discombobulated, but he's justifying why he thought that. Listen to this. What he does here is so significant. He says, so assume maybe one of her friends picked her up. What did he do there? Again, He dropped the I, the personal pronoun I. He psychologically ejected himself from that statement. What he's saying there is, I want you guys to believe that I assumed maybe one of her friends came and picked her up. He didn't say that. He wants you to assume it. He wants you to interpret that that's what he means. But I'm telling you, that is so significant that he dropped that pronoun. He's not there. He's not in it psychologically. And then this subtle little, he's laying foundation here with a little dig towards her. And they went hiking or wine tasting. She likes to go wine tasting, Temecula, and her other thing, or brunch early morning. So now he's laying down this theme of her wine tasting, and it's going to be significant coming up. But I wanted to point that out before we moved on, that how he's psychologically now he's distanced himself from this assumption. So it tells me that this is probably not the case, that he wants us to believe it, but that's likely, highly likely that is made up.
Yeah. It's interesting too that he throws in, well, they went hiking or the wine tasting. Well, Saturday morning, people just go out and start tasting wine on Saturday morning. Maybe so. Is that something she did? What was her pattern? And to me, it kind of throws out this question about who she is and what she's doing out there. She's out there running around drinking Saturday morning away from her family.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Unplanned. Unplanned the same day that it's her daughter's birthday.
Yeah. It just credits who she is and what her character is.
Isn't that the 11th, right? Right. That Saturday.
Yeah.
That Saturday. It's her daughter's. They're supposed to have a party.
That's right.
But okay, let's keep moving.
After that, like at night, she hasn't come home yet, which is sometimes okay.
All of a sudden, we're at night. All of a sudden, we're at night. We've jumped all the way to Saturday night now.
Well, I don't know if she's talking to. I think we may have the context. Do we have the context correct? I think we may. Let's take it back, Dill.
Which is sometimes okay. She'd go out maybe for drinks or something. She usually doesn't drink a lot, but recently she's been, doing that. The latest she would be home like 2:30 or 3:30 in the morning. After that, that's kind of like out of the ordinary.
Sure.
So my sister-in-law was recommending, hey, maybe we should call the cops now. I was like, well, give her some time. But we initially got to the police report. They're like, hey, you got to check the hospitals first. So this is like around 12 o'clock at night. And it's like, okay, they start checking the hospitals.
Let's hold up a bit there.
Yeah, there's some major stuff in there.
Yeah, there really is. And that context of, Larry, what Greg said. Yeah, he jumped. He skipped the whole day. Yeah, he's all over. And he jumped tonight. He skipped the whole day. We're okay. She hasn't come home yet, which is sometimes okay. She'd go out for maybe drinks or something. She usually doesn't drink a lot, but recently she's been, doing that. He's digging into her now. By the way,
Yep.
I've been taking tally, and I'm up to 7 negatives and no neutrals and no positives. Okay.
Yeah.
So now he's saying that she's starting to drink a lot. So this wine tasting thing is becoming more significant. And he says the latest she would be home like 2:30, 3:30. So now he's going back and saying, this is what she would do. This is who she is. She goes off and she comes home at 2:30, 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the morning. That's
risky
kind of
behavior
lately. That's a dig.
Yeah.
And he's making
it suggests that she puts herself out there in a higher risk set of situations and circumstances, right?
Yep. Good
Which is
point.
very significant, Greg. As I listen through this, and I know that you've listened to this, as you listen to it too, all you guys, I'm sure you're going to see, this is going to be become very significant coming up, that this profile that he is painting of her, that she is at higher risk, and it's going to be very significant.
So one of the things I highlighted on that was not only that, but he says that she's maybe for drinks or something. So now all of a sudden we're introducing some other activity that she could be out late doing.
Maybe it's not just drinking.
Maybe it's not just drinking.
Going on.
Yeah. Maybe it's a boyfriend.
So he's starting to really throw her under the bus.
Yeah, he's doubling down on. Yeah, throwing her under the bus.
He's the good parent, guardian, father at home with the kids.
Yeah,
exactly.
But she's only good when it comes to homeschooling. At that moment, right? She's the homeschooler.
But even then, his portrayal of her was that she's really not even able to take care of the kids at that point in time. They have to take care of her. It still was a dig.
She's making her own food. Right? Forget the kids. She's
working for herself.
Just for herself. Yeah, for sure.
This is getting good. We're just getting in the meat potatoes. I can feel it.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah, it's just ramping up. And so then he says, after that, skipping time, skip over information. It's kind of like, here we have with the equivocation again, out of the ordinary. So, which means if she doesn't come home, so what he's saying there is that coming home at 2:30, 3:30 in the morning is the ordinary thing for her. After that, that would be out of the ordinary. Okay, that's not a good picture she's trying to paint. He says, so, my sister-in-law is recommending, hey, maybe we should call the cops now. And I was like, well, give her some time. And I know wife's missing. If the family is worried enough that they want to go make a report that she's missing because they know that this is not the ordinary thing, why is that not good enough for him? So then we want to know, well, is she close with the family? Does she stay in contact with the family? How would they know that this isn't the ordinary thing? And guess what? We all know that she was very tight with her family. She stayed in close contact with them. They went on outings together. They celebrated the birthdays. They were supposed to celebrate the birthday with her daughter. They're very tight. And so if the family doesn't think that this is right and that they should go to the police, I would think that he would want to do the same, but he wants to give her space. He wants to let this play out for a while. And he says, this is interesting what happens here. He says, but we initially got to the police report. I don't even know what that means. Like something that we knew we had to get to, and we got to it. Finally, it doesn't really flow. He's not saying we went and made a police report. That one, I would, if we had hours, we'd really tear that one apart. But this suffice to say, it's not making sense right there. We initially got to the police report. They're like, hey, you got to check the hospitals first. Okay, so it's a reason he's trying to justify not making the police report right away is the way that I picked that up right there. He's going to say some more things that'll shed some more light on that coming up. But he wants to wait. He wants more time.
Yeah, it just fit into this scenario, and he's trying to answer questions before they're asked, right?
There you go.
And then who waits around for your wife until 2:30 or 3:30 in the morning? Okay, beyond that, then we start worrying a little bit. I'm going to wait for my wife to come home or where she's been from all the way until 2:30 or 3:30 in the morning before I start being concerned about what she's doing out there. So if that's true, then there must be a pattern of behavior that supports what he's saying. And it also, in a sense, characterizes her and what she's doing. She's out there without him. She's out there with whomever or whatever. drinking or something until 2:30, 3:30 in the morning. Now, it's further mischaracterization, I think, of who she is, who May is.
Well, and he characterizes himself by saying that he's in a position to be there to know. It's almost like he's the parent figure. I know when she comes in, I'm able to tell you because I'm the one who's home. I'm taking care. I'm the parent. I'm the good guy. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I've seen that kind of stall. You guys probably have in the past, where that always opens the door for other people to be involved, to help post incident, and it's that stall that kind of gets it in there. I mean, for all we know, there are other things at play here that haven't come to light yet. But it's going to be interesting to watch that piece of the puzzle. But let's keep moving. What do you got?
30, they finally filed the police report. And I was like, well, maybe give her some time, because I'd call like at 4:30 because, give her some time if it's really, really out of the ordinary. So after that, they started the investigation. Well, 3 cops came. I let them search the house. They looked all the houses, all the cars, and then we just been waiting. And then I got the NCIS called me, and then he was able to search the house and everything. My in-laws have been here the whole time. They start doing the neighbors, the cameras and everything, trying to figure out if when she left, like they can see it, but they can't really because it was nighttime kind of deal. We're just basically trying everything and anything, trying to find her.
Well, Larry, just tell me how.
Let's hold up. All right, I'm gonna back up a little bit, and then I'm gonna come back to that significant part that he just talked about. So first of all, I'm going to note that he says the police said that you have to check the hospitals first. And so who checked the hospitals? He says they start checking the hospitals, and then 2:30 they finally filed the police report. Not him. Okay.
Right.
It was the family. And and he explains it. And I was like, well, maybe give her some time, because I'd call for 4:30 because, and he didn't finish the thought. He self-censored. Give her some time. If it's really, really out of the ordinary, he went from, it was out of the ordinary, okay. Now he's like, well, let's give her some time. Let's let it be really, really out of the ordinary before we file this report, which is almost comical to me. That's
got three different levels
have to be to file a police report if your wife isn't there, if she's been missing for a couple of days. So he says
he's gone three different levels of out of the ordinary, really out of the ordinary, and then really, really out of the ordinary.
Really, exactly. Yeah. So
we're not laughing at her, obviously, but our experiences told us, and that's for our audience to understand, because the sensitive as this case is, right, that we're on your team 100%, and the reason that we're expressing the way we are is because we've seen this so many times. It's like, this guy, you got to be kidding us. That's where this is coming from. And so, just being sensitive to everybody, her family, that please, understand where we're coming from. We're here to 100% to do good for Maya. And it's not, we're laughing at her. We're actually laughing at Larry in totality. And I think everybody understands that, but sometimes, folks will just won't catch that vision if they come in late. So I just want to qualify that for everybody. But keep moving. I'm sorry. Keep moving.
That's a great understanding too that you need to have. Instead of a 4 cops getting together and talking about something, it's from our perspective, but we're absolutely laughing at Larry's language here. It's borderlines on ludicrous, and maybe it isn't even borderline. Maybe it is ludicrous. It's just crazy that how he has qualified this. So listen to what he does now. He says, so after that, they started investigation. Well, 3 cops came, and I let them search the house. what a good guy I am. I let them do it. Come on, Larry. If they came, they're going to be looking in the house. They're going to do a welfare check. And for those of you that don't know, when there's any indication that something might be wrong, we can search the house. You know, the law enforcement can search the house to make sure that everyone is okay. It's a welfare check. It's a very common thing. And so that's what they did. So for him to say that I let them search the house, he is misrepresenting that to make himself look like the good guy once again. And he says, they look all the houses. Doesn't make sense. Okay, there we go again. All the cars, and we just been waiting, and I got the NCIS called me. So it's like it's almost like he's saying, and I got the NCIS on my back. It's like a problem for him. And so anyway, that's what I see in that. And then, guys, what he says next is so significant to me, especially in context of what we have discussed just a few minutes ago. Listen to this. He says, and then he was able to search the house and everything. My in-laws have been here the whole time. They start doing the neighbors, the cameras and everything, trying to figure out if, and he self-censors, when she left. Okay? When she left. He's talking about timing here. Like, they can see it. He says they can see it when she left. What do they see? What is it that's in his brain that's it? But they can't really, because it was nighttime kind of deal. Guys, tell me what you think.
He's baiting them.
What I'm hearing there is that he just narrowed this down for us. In his mind, he knows they can see it. And what do they see? Nighttime. They see it at nighttime. Maya left at night when it was dark.
And
now, it doesn't mean she left on her own.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Left when it was dark.
It was dark, and it was under circumstances that no one can identify who was in that car.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as he thinks about it, then he goes, he lets out this sigh, this nighttime kind of deal. And then, we're basically, so there's an emotion coming out there as well.
That's a good point, Dean. Hey, could we replay that last little part there and just hear that?
They started the investigation. Well, 3 cops came. I let them search the house. They looked all the houses, all the cars, and then we just been waiting. And then I got the NCIS called me, and then he was able to search the house and everything. My in-laws have been here the whole time. They start doing the neighbors, the cameras and everything, trying to figure out if when she left. Like they can see it, but they can't really because it was nighttime kind of deal. We're just basically trying everything and anything, trying to find her.
Yeah, I think he's setting the play for even the PD. I think he's setting the play for the PD to see what they know. I mean, that's what. Go ahead.
He anticipated it, didn't he?
Yeah,
he
exactly.
Anticipated it because he knows that they couldn't see anything from it.
Or is he trying to figure out what they know? Right? Meaning, maybe there is some video up there somewhere.
Yeah, and that's right.
And he's playing.
He's already confident. He's already confident that there's nothing in there that anybody can see, or he's heard already that they couldn't tell who was in the car. Yeah, maybe he got words from some other avenue there, and he's just giving that now out to the interviewer.
Which would make sense why they took his car, because if that thing fired up at any certain time in the evening, as what would Ricky say, right? Lucy, you have some explaining, right? But anyway.
And notice too, he's never been involved in any of the searches so far. or any of the work, any of the effort. They. It's all they. They're doing all the work.
Interesting.
That's right. And I agree with you guys that he is revealing what he knows. He is setting the play, and he's trying to steer this investigation that they can't see anything. It was nighttime, and it makes me now wonder, was this planned? Was this,
Right.
I don't know, but there's that question in my mind, did if he took her out of the house, maybe she wasn't capable, maybe she wasn't conscious, I don't know, but was it planned that he took her out during the night because they wouldn't be able to see? They wouldn't really be able to see it. And so,
Well, but look what he says. He says, like, they can see it, but they can't really. So
they see the car, but they can't see inside the car.
Yeah. So he's like, they can see it.
Or what's going inside the car.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it. And then he says, well, but they can't really. So it's almost like right then and there where something, that's a key right there, I think.
Yeah. Is there a vehicle in play here, in a position whereby those door cameras or anything like that? It's kind of like the Christopher Watts. Remember when you could see him go into the car, but you couldn't really tell what he was doing. I wonder if this is a similar, setup here, and he knows it, or at least he thinks he knows it. At least, maybe
that's what it sounds like to me. And I know from my own Ring camera that you look at it at night, and yeah, it's difficult to identify the cars that are going by at night. I'm sure he's researched that, and there may be more coming up that would indicate that he has researched this and thought it out, and it's probably going to be in his language, but it's now sounding to me like he's not only researched it, but he's trying to steer that investigation.
Okay, well, somebody says here he was seen pulling a Lexus at 4:30, leaving to go 6:30 to go to the beach with his son. Well, 4:30 to 6:30. I mean, I was a cop in San Diego County forever. There aren't many people going to the beach at 4:30 in the morning with their kids to the beach, unless they're, well, I don't know. That one just doesn't make sense. If that's true, that's just another red flag. But I don't want to digress. So keep moving, Steve. This is getting really interesting. And by the way, we're 2 hours and 20 minutes into this. I still want to get some questions from our community here for you guys. So where do you want to go?
Let's go to the next question and answer then.
Okay. And I think we're halfway.
Larry, just tell me, how worried are you, and what do you think happened? Where do you think she is?
I wasn't really worried. I was kind of like worried, but I wasn't like totally worried until the birthday. I was thinking, okay, maybe like she's just blowing off steam, just like doing what she told me before, where she wants everyone to leave her alone. Because before I used to get her family involved, like, hey, she's not coming home, and then why'd you call my family? I just want everyone to leave me the thing alone. But I was like, okay, this time I think she stepped up her game. Like she's blocking everyone. But now that she missed our daughter's birthday, and like with all this pressure with the media and everything, there's something keeping her from contacting us. So my sister-in-law is, I don't really try to think about that stuff because it's like mind-numbing, but I'm trying to stay positive.
Hold up.
But when
let's back up a little bit.
Hang on, let me get the popcorn. Hang on for a moment.
Yeah. Pass popcorn. Larry, just tell me, how worried are you? Do you think the reporter is maybe getting a sense that Larry might not be that worried? She's sensing that there's a negative linguistic disposition towards May. So it's a very good question. What I didn't like is that she asked two questions at once. She doubled up on her questions. How worried are you? And what do you think happened? Be better if she just asked one question at a time. But that worried thing, guys, well, before I wasn't really worried, it's kind of like worried. he took himself out of that equation. It's kind of like worried, but I wasn't totally worried. What in the world? Are you worried or are you not worried? And with that kind of discombobulation about being worried, guys, I'm not thinking that Larry's very worried about May whatsoever.
No emotion at all.
Yeah, it's just off the charts, discombobulated. He says, now he digs into May. He goes, she wants everyone to leave her alone because before I used to get her family involved. Hey, like she's not coming home. So now he's telling us that May is doing it again. She's out there not coming home. She's drinking or whatever it was. She's not coming home at 2:30, 3:30 in the morning. And so I had to get her family involved. And it'd be really interesting to know what the family says about that. But Larry is trying to paint this negative picture about his wife. And at the same time, he's justifying why he wanted to delay the report, which is significant that he wanted to delay that report. And so he says, but I was like, hey, this time I think she stepped up the game. Oh my gosh. I mean, guys, let me just another couple of notches here. I think we're up to about 10 negative linguistic dispositions where he's done it. He's dug into May. That's not good. He's denigrating the victim. She stepped up her game, like she's blocking everyone. But now, she's missed our daughter's birthday, like it's on purpose. He's saying she did this on purpose. And like with all this pressure from the media and everything, and she's still not calling, man, the negativity is really, it's pegged here. He says, there's something keeping her from contacting us. He's right. So my sister-in-law, I don't really try to think about that stuff because it's like mind numbing, but I'm trying to stay positive. Again, took the focus off May, put it back on himself with this emotion about it being mind numbing for him. And what he's trying to do is stay positive. Now, devil's advocate, she asked him, how worried are you? And so he's saying, I try to stay positive. So I can't really dig into that too much, but I do note the blame is off the hook that he's casting towards May.
Hey, well, Steve, don't you think it's also significant if you dig a little deeper into after he says blowing off steam, that she's blowing off steam, doing what she told me forward. Now, on its own, it doesn't make any sense. But within the context of a triggering event and what's going on that night, an argument that may have had to do surrounding something of the nature of going forward. There is no going forward anymore. We're ending this thing. What she told me forward. In other words, there is no future. We're not going any future together after this event. And then the other reference, think alone. Oh, that she's stepping up her game. Yeah, I think she did step up her game, and I think she stepped it up because we're not going forward. And she told him that she wanted a divorce. Something along that line.
Well, I think too, there's the contrast between him digging into her, but he's also making himself sound like he's more understanding and patient, with this process. So he's being built up in the way that he describes the narrative, while at the same time he's tearing her down. So that's happening simultaneously in this statement as well, because he's trying to make it sound like, let's see, he says, but I was like, hey, this time she's stepping up her game. But he earlier on was saying, why did you call my family? So he was saying, I was giving her room there. She's normally on me. So I was the good guy here. I was giving her the room that she's always pestered me about not giving when these situations occur. So I think there's a little bit of that happening here as well.
Yeah. And I want to dovetail into that too, Dean, with this idea, right? This is more of the secret life conversation, right? Coop. I mean, I would read it. I would see this one, guys, as have they been having these conversations? These personal conversations that look, it needs to stay within us. We don't want the kids involved, and it could be divorce, it could be who knows what. And then she all of a sudden throws a curveball, to your point, right, Coop, of stepping up the game. And that perception could be what I think he's projecting there, is this idea of, well, they don't know about the secret life, so they're going to perceive that as in her public persona, i.e., she's doing something out of her character, out drinking, jeeping, or whatever. So he transfers that completely. When you're right, the whole reason that it could have been a trigger, which kind of set him off, was the fact that she did step up her game to protect herself, potentially. Yeah. Go ahead. I don't want to read too much into that one, though, but that's my thinking.
I think you're right on. I think there's definitely historical context to these little statements, not just about what he's making reference to here, but making reference to the precipitating stressors that are going on in their lives, and this build up over time, up to and including this triggering event, and that it's very personal and it has to do with the dismantling of the family in his mind.
Interesting. Steve?
Yeah, I agree. There's always so much more to the words that we use, that our brain produces. And he told us right in the beginning that when he was asked a question, his mind went back in time about a year to regarding their arguments and their troubles. And so all of this is taking all that he knows in context, everything that's leading up to this. And you know what? I agree 100%. He chose these words. There's a reason he chose these words. I think she stepped up the game. And if I was doing this analysis with a group of trained investigators, I guarantee you that we would come up with that same analysis you guys just come up with, that she stepped up her game, and she likely wanted out of this marriage. She was taking it to the next step. So far, he's had a place to live. He's in the house. He's with his kids. That's a big deal, to be in the house with your kids. And it's likely that she stepped up the game. And now what does he have to do? He's now portraying, putting it all on her, which is it's not a good sign. If this was just something he's let's say he doesn't have guilty knowledge, he's de facto innocent in all this, I don't think we would be hearing this type of language come out of his mouth. There'd be no need for it. So this is, for me, it indicates that he might have some kind of guilty knowledge. And like you said before, Chris, it could be something that just an accident happened. We don't know, but the words definitely reflect what is in our perception, in our brain. So that's really good analysis.
No, there certainly appears to be some jeopardy here, right? I mean, in terms of his perceptive jeopardy. And then, if we move that, to the untrained, ear, right, is this idea of he's going to keep everything in the public persona. Right, Coop? I mean, he's not flowing back and forth into the private persona. He's staying way out there in the public persona. I mean, even to the point where he says, it's embarrassing. I mean, he's wrapping himself right up to, hey, by the way, she does this all the time. Take a look at what she's doing now. I'm over here, the knight in shining armor. But, oh, by the way, she does homeschool the kids. And the list just goes on. I mean, Steve, you have absolutely blasted this thing wide open, in my opinion, tonight.
That's good.
Where hopefully people can take a listen back through this. But let's keep going, because we still got some more here. And how about this? How much longer do you think we have? in terms of where do you have any major just like cannonballs that you want to launch from perspective here?
I think we launched the biggest cannonballs actually.
Because we did this the last time, and I didn't want to stop you because I just I mean we're 2 hours 34 minutes into this, and I know we could go for another 4 hours, but at the same time I want to be sensitive to everybody on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
But I'll keep moving. You know me, I'll stay here for days. But at the same time,
let me just there's a right here. I think we dropped the biggest cannonballs. I want to get to the next couple questions, and that's I think one of the biggest things. The rest of it is as I listened to it and went over it, he's just digging more into May. But right here, we're kind of at the crux of things, and I want to come back to this one little point here, a little statement he says. He goes, but now that you know she missed our daughter's birthday, and like with all this pressure with the media and everything, he's inferring that May should feel pressure from the media. To me, I'm like, why would May feel pressure? He's insinuating that she's staying away on purpose. And it's just this huge dig to May. I'm thinking actually that Larry's feeling pressure from the media.
Yeah.
What pressure is there? And it makes me, I'm thinking this interview right here, this is pressure on Larry. And you know what? It is. We're seeing the pressure displayed, the way that his brain is reacting to this pressure. We're seeing the display here. This brain is like turning on this valve, and the information is leaking out. The deception is leaking out. The stress is leaking out, and the need for him to rehab himself, make him portray himself as a good guy. He's feeling pressure from this interview.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree. He's created his own pressure, and a lot of it has developed and evolved because of his own lack of apparent interest in where his wife is in terms of there's no behavior to back up any stated interest because he's not done anything to try to find her. The only thing he's done, as far as I know, is this interview with the media, and he appears to be trying to create, as we've talked about, he jumps back and forth between the secret, the private, and the public life. He's trying to present a public persona, an image to the public of the caring father, but he's revealed in the private life, that is a life between he and May, that they have a very troubled marriage, and it's on the brink of dissolving. And then in the secret life, there's some exposure in that secret life about what happened that night within the confines of at least one, probably two bedrooms.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, classic.
This next part here, and it's going to be pretty revealing, I think.
Okay, let's go.
When people are telling me, hey, maybe she got into an accident while she's hiking, and she can't get her phone, like, well, her phone would be right next to her, you know what I mean? Like, she wears fabletics, so it would be in her pocket. So worst case scenario, I don't know what's keeping her from, contacting anyone, but this pressure should be enough pressure to say, hey, you guys, I'm okay.
Right.
So I'm not quite sure what to think, but, I'm still trying to, keep my head up, trying to say, hey, keep positive and say, I'm hoping, like she'd just come home, even though this whole situation is embarrassing. I don't know what to think, but the longer it's going, the more like surreal it gets, because, what they say is like the first 48, 72 hours is the most critical. I've seen enough movies and, documentaries about this kind of stuff. So, like, the worst case scenario is basically something's happened, like very terrible. You know what I mean? So
Let's hold up.
Yeah.
So significant. And I know you guys saw this too. That we questioned just a few minutes ago whether this was planned, whether he did his homework, looked at cameras, did some planning and whatnot. And I think this tells us that he did. He says, he knows that it's the first 48 to 72 hours are most critical. This brings us full circle. I wanted to wait. I suggested we wait to make the report, and he's trying to delay this incident for how long? 48 to 72
hours.
He knows that's the most critical point or part of the investigation. And so also so significant in there. So there's a lot significant, but he says this whole situation is embarrassing. My goodness. If my wife was missing, there'd be nothing embarrassing about this. It's like, let's find her.
Yep.
Yeah, let's find her. This came on the heel. He's obviously saying that it's her fault that she's staying away on purpose. But just before that, he said, people are telling me, hey, maybe she got into an accident while she's hiking, and she can't get a phone. Like, well, and this will now, he changed the context, and this is now him giving those imaginary people, whoever it was that he's not telling us, his response. Like, well, her phone be right next to her, I mean, like, she wears Pabletics. It would be in her pocket. It's fascinating to me that he not only gave a hypothetical scenario, hypothetical people, hypothetical conversation. He created the question, and he gave the answer without attributing any ownership as to who asked the question, who he gave the answer to, anything like names, groups, gender, anyone, family, friends, whoever it was, just people. And we don't expect that. So I wonder, all right, it makes me think.
Well, and Steve, and he qualifies it to a clothing brand. It's like, who cares? She's missing. She's missing. It's like, and she's driving a Mercedes. What? But go ahead. I didn't mean to mess up your flow. Go ahead.
No, it's perfect. That's perfect. I don't even know. Here's my ignorance. I don't even know what Pabletics is. Is that something expensive? Is it like the Mercedes of whatever clothing or that, you can carry your phone with you? I don't know. But what I do know is he's saying that she could call because, hey, she wears Pabletics. So that phone would be right there. That she would have access to that. He says, and she can get a phone. Like, well, her phone be right next to her. If you break this down, he's saying her phone be right next to her. I wouldn't be surprised to find whenever, let's say worst case scenario, that she's found deceased and her body's found. It would not surprise me that her phone is found with her.
And she's wearing Fabletics.
Yeah.
So how significant do you guys think it is that in this context of this thought process, these sentences right here, that he introduces the concept of accident, maybe while hiking, but he concludes with the worst case scenario, basically, something happened. It's like very terrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. In my paperwork right here, I highlighted that in red, like very terrible. He is painting this picture. I think it's very significant that he has introduced this scenario of her hiking and an accident. We cannot overlook that. What the significance of that is. Now, with that being said, put it all in context. He's trying to tell us that she has a drinking problem, that she has risky behaviors, she disregards the family, She looks out only for herself, not the rest of the family or anyone else. She does what she wants to do. She tells everyone to leave her alone. She wants her space. He doesn't need space, but she wants her space from him and everyone else as well. And that she could call if she wanted to. She's staying away on purpose. She missed her daughter's birthday on purpose. I mean, there's so many negatives. I think I just named off more than 10, and I only have 10 check marks on so I'm behind. But he is steering this whole conversation, this whole interview is him trying to steer this investigation of where it should go. In the process, I love it. What happens when people talk, they give themselves away, because what he's given away is that they had an argument, and there's deception about that argument. There's things he doesn't want to tell us about that argument. It was likely physical, highly likely physical. He's narrowed down the time frame for us, that it was likely that Thursday night, Friday morning time period. He knows that they won't be able to see it on the cameras, that they can see it, but not quite. He even gave a question of if she left the house, and then he got off that if she left the house and said when she left the house, which comes back to was she capable of even taking care of herself, meaning was she conscious? And so I tie that in with that. If the same thing, was she conscious when she left the house? That would be the if to when. And I just lost my train of thought. 48 to 72 hours, he knows is critical. He delayed reporting. He wanted to delay reporting because he knows that that's most critical. There was likely planning involved in this, premeditation, whatever it was. And guys, I know I'm jumping to a kind of a conclusion here, but it's in his language. And I wouldn't jump to that conclusion if it wasn't there. So I'm not taking away that there could be something that happened within that accident, that argument, that an accident occurred. But whatever it was, I come full circle now to what Dean just said, because it came out of Larry's mouth, like very terrible, So basically, something's happened, like very terrible. You know what I mean? And
those are really all
hundreds
all admissions. Those are admissions. That's what we call
admissions. And I've heard it in hundreds of interviews. When it comes out, think of all the other things they could have said, but they didn't. These are the words that he chose. It came out of his brain for a reason. And they're admissions. These are words that he's reaching out to describe situations and scenarios that he knows, and put that together with the physically twice. It's right there. I think.
So here's a thought, right? So the pants are of it's a brand of workout clothes from Kate Hudson. My wife tells me. And what was interesting, right? Those pants apparently have, and I'm looking at some of our chat over here for all of our the young ladies in here who are weighing in on these workout clothes. They have pockets for phones, But what struck me is he said, but her phone would be next to her. And so let's hypothesize. Let's say she's on a hike. Okay, and she's attacked, okay, and her phone's in her pockets, okay. How the heck's he going to know that her phone would be next to her? How the heck's he going to know if she even grabbed her phone, okay, and used her phone, while being, hypothetically attacked, okay? But now you take that into a room scenario, and let's say she grabs the phone to call 911, and something happens, and she's not able to make the call, and now the phone is next to her. It's not in her pockets. That's a hypothetical as well. But I find that's an interesting statement that he makes. I mean, it's so specific to no connection. I mean, other than, she's wearing these pants, but her phone would have been next to her. It's okay.
Yeah, they're just little disjointed, what appear to be, within the context that he's speaking, they're disjointed statements But if you take those statements, and you can create a full scenario from those statements if you put those together as to what certainly could have happened. And of course, there's a possibility too that the accident, reference to an accident, anticipate the possibility that if she is ever discovered under this set of circumstances, that there very well may be a potential staging of an apparent accident.
Yeah, good point.
I think that is a very, very good possibility. You see how much information is coming out of this interview, out of Larry's words. I know if we sat down with a group of trained analysts and we broke this down, we would get so much more information. And we might even have to break it down into 2 different days because it would take there's so much here. It's going to take a long time because there's so much information. In fact, I think we might do that maybe with a trained group of investigators with some of my colleagues. We'd maybe have you guys sit in on that if you'd like to, and what's in his brain is manifesting, and this staging aspect of it. I come full circle to the Larry setting the stage here for the investigators. I think it's very, very possible, highly likely that scene will be staged whenever we find Maya. It's a definite possibility.
Yeah, and I'm gonna add into that as well, Steve, that I think that we've got another person involved helping. I don't think it's just him if he's involved. I'm not buying this right now personally, and you and I, we can talk offline, but what are your thoughts about just kind of throwing that up? I think there's somebody else out there that knows and or after the fact got involved.
I agree, and it's based on one word that he used earlier in the statement. It's one of those what I call an invisible word. It's such an instinctual word for us that when we hear it, we gloss over it, and that word is "we," and it's such a powerful, powerful word.
Bingo.
And I didn't bring it up earlier because most people that are going to say, "Oh, you're really digging now. You're really digging." And you see how powerful that is when we've come now this far. And if I would have brought that up earlier, I would have been able to say, "Chris, you just nailed it." That's what I was talking about earlier when he said we could still hear. And I believe him. We could still hear. I think there was likely somebody else involved. And he wasn't talking about his son. Okay. He's talking about somebody else. And what you're seeing there, Chris, of course, this is the dream team panel right here. You guys get it. You're getting this is your job. For years you've been digging into the minds of people just like I have. It becomes very, very significant. I agree 100%.
So
one of the thoughts.
Go ahead, Coop.
It also suggests that we make reference to heard her, and he makes another couple of references to that, and that is that the initial interaction necessarily wasn't the final interaction. That her status, she could have survived an initial interaction, which required a follow-up to that because she could be heard.
The rustling. Don't you think the rustling reference?
Yeah. What may have been what they thought originally, what was thought originally was that, okay, it's over. The interaction is over. Nope. There's this noise, and somebody recognizes that point. It's not over, and more steps need to be taken.
I think that's a great thought. That's it. Here we're digging deeper, and Greg, that's I think you're, in my personal opinion, you've hit it on the nail on the head there.
Interesting. Dean?
Thanks.
That's what I was. That's what I was. The word rustling, when he said that he could hear her rustling around, that has stuck with me.
And he makes reference to hearing a couple times.
Yeah, he hears this, and I could hear her rustling around. Just if it's something that happened, it got out of hand, whatever, and then there is a time delay between that point and the later time. She could have been in that secondary room. I mean, there's some things about that I haven't been able to get away from. That's for sure.
Okay, so we've got one of our community members here, and you know what, Albania, I can't disagree with you at all. I think this is, this case is still moving. It's still, she's still out there, and I agree with you 100%. Guys, I want to offer you guys, I think we should, I think we need to do a part 2 on this and kind of, catch it from where we're at. Let's schedule, if you guys are up for that, Steve and Coop and Dean, and because I really do believe and you've said it a couple times, Steve, we're just scratching the surface on this one. I'm not going to be surprised. I think if all of us with, our experience weighing in here, if this wasn't just something that went sideways and next thing you know, a phone call is made, somebody's helping, and it just goes deeper down the rabbit hole. So are you guys up for a part 2? Are you guys comfortable with that, Steve?
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, with what we have so far with part 1, let's take some questions, because we promised our audience that we would take some questions. So Dylan, let's put some questions up here from some folks. And by the way, if you're just getting with us here tonight, these guys are the best in my opinion, hands down. We've got Greg Cooper, Steve Johnson, and Dean Jackson from Greg from the FBI BAU and the Cold Case Foundation Executive Director, and of course Dean, the Assistant Executive Director, and then of course Steve with Truth and Lies. We're going to put all their information down below, but so let's go ahead and put some questions up here. Was Larry feeling emasculated? Who wants to take that? Cool.
Oh, definitely. I think there was a point where he felt very threatened about the end of the relationship. And that's certainly one way to put it. That she had made a position, she stated that position, and that from that point forward, there was no future within that relationship. And I think as a result of that, that became a triggering event to an episode that occurred because you got all the precipitating stressors leading up to it. And certainly that reference that she makes as psyche certainly could be consistent with that description.
Steve, you want to take this one?
The previous one or the new question?
Yeah. Do you think Larry's watching tonight?
If I put myself in Larry's shoes, I'd be watching everything. I would be watching. I'd want to know what the experts were saying, what they were thinking. I want to know questions as to how I should proceed. So in my opinion, he's watching. It's been, as I've interviewed suspects, inmates, let me say the smarter ones, okay? Because there's a lot that aren't smart. Smarter ones, what they tell me is that, Steve, knowledge is power. And the more knowledge I have, the longer I go without getting caught, the more I can accomplish, the better off I am. And the more powerful I am, the more knowledge I have. So I don't know what Larry's mindset is, but definitely if I was in his shoes, I'd be watching.
So Nana has a question. If he didn't see her Friday night, how could he know what she was wearing Saturday?
I just wrote that down. That was one of the points I just came up with as we were winding this up. I thought, wait a minute, how could he know what she was wearing if he didn't see her? And he's going on and on about not visually seeing her, not physically seeing her. That is a very good point. And it's great. We got so caught up in all the other stuff that we're seeing here that that's just one of those points that we just didn't quite get to yet. So excellent observation by that viewer.
Do you think CPD is handling this case well? Yes, I do. Pull the 10. Yep. And the reason we know that is they're quiet. And hopefully they're watching tonight too and picking up some ideas. Let's see what else we got here. Why haven't they arrested him if they have a ring video that Maya never left her home by herself? There could be a couple of reasons for that. One, the clarity of that video, and it might not necessarily be showing Maya herself. It may just be something else, vehicles, movement, people, that kind of stuff. And so they have to analyze that, and there are ways of doing that. They can enhance those types of things. Okay, what's the next one we've got? Has Ellie searched the home? Yes, they have. They've done search warrants there. And which, by the way, they have to get probable cause to do that. Red Jewel 423, has he gone through a lie detector test yet? Chris Watts did on day 3. His wife went missing. I don't know if he's taken a CVSA or a poly. Anybody else know?
No. I'm not aware.
I don't know. And I don't blame the investigators for not giving us that information either. So
yeah, not right now.
You know, Chris, one of the things I'd just throw out there too that I think is really important to keep in context, and I'm just thinking of the question about, you know, why the law enforcement, or are they doing a good job? I think for us, part of it to understand is we're just looking at this statement. I mean, this is a very narrow window that we're looking at. We're pulling all of this out of just this narrow little window of this case that we have. So there's a lot of other things that are in motion and moving out there that are interconnected. And, you know, if we were doing a case at the foundation, for example, we would have much more information. I mean, we wouldn't be pulling everything out of just this. So there's a lot of things happening simultaneously in a case of this nature. So.
Yeah, that's a great point, Dean. That is an excellent point. Judy Johnson's asked, do you believe Larry knows where Maya is? And I'm going to go around the room, and we'll kind of hang it up on this one for part 1, and then we'll go into part 2. We'll schedule that coming up here. So, Dean, I'm going to start with you.
I think he knows a lot more than he's telling everybody.
Okay, Steve?
I can't say that he knows where she is, but I think that he has knowledge that he has information he's not telling us. I think there's things that he wants to hide from the investigation. He doesn't want revealed. So I think what I can say is that, does he have a level of guilty knowledge? Yes, he has a level of guilty knowledge. I don't know to what extent that is, but I believe that he knows a lot more than he would like to let on.
Okay, so before I turn it over to Coop for the closer, I just want to tell everybody, thank you so much for being here tonight. We are grateful. We know this was another marathon, but these cases are so integral, and there's so many moving parts. But you know, assembling a panel like this of guys that do this for a living, you know, it's no different than the guys that are trying to figure it out at that end. The information that's being weighed here is weighed here very carefully, and the things that are being said are being said selectively and carefully. And we do have some other insight and information that you know, we have learned collectively as a panel. So we're not going to reveal some of that stuff for obvious reasons right now, but we can't do it without you, our mods. If you haven't subscribed yet to the interview room, please do so, and please consider it. Just hit that button. We're pretty close to 10,000, and we want to get there but we need your help to do it. Dylan's going to be in the back room. I want to say thank you to him. Thank you to everybody that's been here tonight. So with that, Coop, you have the last word, and Dylan, when Greg is done, go ahead and take us out till the next time we meet again. And please be good to each other. And if you know anything about Maya's disappearance, if you know friends, family, or quite frankly, if you got stuck in something, call Chula Vista PD. You'd be doing the right thing. So, Greg, what do you think?
Well, I think this attests to the concept of what we refer to in the Cold Case Foundation as the Mayo Clinic approach, and that is looking at a case from different perspectives, different experiences, training and education. And as a result of that, we come up through this synergistic application, a whole new way to look at it. And it's amazing, isn't it, really, as we go through this process. I can imagine how intriguing it is and interesting it is to the audience to watch this in motion, to see how we develop off from each other more thoughts and expands into other areas that individually by ourselves we never could come up with this kind of concept. And we can, as a group, and when I say as a group, certainly law enforcement working together, but also incorporating public support. There's really not much we can't do and what we cannot accomplish together. And so I just would encourage everybody to participate, to let us know other areas that you'd like us to address, and to recognize that it's with your help that we can continue to help law enforcement and victims' families resolve these cases. So thanks, Chris, for the forum, for making it possible, and thanks, Dean and Steve, for your expertise. It's really amazing to watch and to be a witness to all of it.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
See you guys.
Take care.
Dill, take us out.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away.